What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. We're going to get into this Kyle Rittenhouse opening statement. Shout out to John Denicola, John McElroy's Ghost. What's going on? Appreciate all of y'all joining in. Quick listen to my man Ghetto Reese before we get into the meats and potatoes of this. Shout out to Ghetto Reese. Jimmy Sharo.
Fuck it, losing it option. Yeah, I want it, gotta get it now. Ain't no quitting, ain't no stopping. And fuck it, losing it option. Yeah, I want it, gotta get it now. Gotta get it and stop it. Gotta get it and stop it. Tell them losing it option. I told them losing it option. Elevator, get it poppin', damn, they for nigga hold it down. But nigga hold it down. But nigga turn the dash and my nigga helmet down. And now we getting up, and now we getting up. And now we starting on these niggas, we don't give a fuck. Tell them that cake, nigga, I get that cake, nigga.
Once again, I want to give a shout out to everybody in this chat, everybody that's in the bushes. Appreciate y'all. We're going to get into this review of Kyle Rittenhouse opening statements. But before we do, I just want to do a little recap. I believe earlier this year, I had a live and we were speaking about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. And at that time, everything wasn't fully developed as far as what was going on around the whole incident of the shooting and everything. So and as well, I didn't do enough research. So at that time, I was adamant about Kyle Rittenhouse not being guilty, being as though he was approached by two men. And from the video, it seems as though that, he wasn't doing nothing wrong. He was armed. And, I put myself in his shoes and I felt as though that I would have done the same thing. But that was before I found out that there was a whole militia in town as well with the protesters. And, I still feel adamant about what he did wasn't wrong because he was, protecting himself, but it was the whole intent of the situation. I'm just crossing state lines with guns, going there to pretty much be a vigilante and, take up with a group of militiamen who are just, seem to be acting like cowboys. But that's just my opinion. If y'all feel some type of way about it, drop it in the comments. All right, we're about to get into this interview. We're about to get into this review of Kyle Rittenhouse opening statements. Shout out to Constitution Matters, Klein Lambert, Monique Lee, what's going on? Marco Luna. Let's get into it.
Attention, and with that, Mr. Binger, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence in this case will show that on the night of August 25th, 2020, here in our community of Kenosha, the defendant Kyle Rittenhouse, who was 17 years old at the time, had armed himself with an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle loaded with 30 rounds in the magazine. And using that rifle, he shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum, an unarmed man. The shot that killed Mr. Rosenbaum was a shot to the back. It occurred after the defendant chased down Mr. Rosenbaum and confronted him while wielding that AR-15. The evidence will show that the defendant fled the scene of the dead body of Joseph Rosenbaum without stopping to offer any aid whatsoever. And as he's running, word spreads from the crowd on the street that there is an active shooter running.
But before, let's not forget this though. After he fled, he did raise his hands in front of police, and police seemed to ignore the whole situation. He definitely did put his hands up in front of police, and they ignored the whole situation, when kind of just adds more fuel to the fire, more salt to the wound.
Through the area, and the citizens there attempt to stop him. They approach the defendant. One person hits him in the back of the head. One person takes a swing at him with a skateboard. That individual is Anthony Huber. Eventually, the defendant loses his balance and falls to the ground. An individual who is the subject of count number 2, the unknown individual, runs in at that point and attempts to kick the defendant in the face while the defendant is on the ground. This unknown individual is unarmed. The defendant, in response, points his AR-15 directly at this individual as this individual is literally flying over his body.
Shout outs to John McElroy's Ghost. He made two comments rather. He said he ran when he could have stayed, and he also said that he shot people in order to get away. Okay. He ran when he could have stayed. I don't know about that one. That's your opinion. But when you say he shot people in order to get away, that's true. I agree with you. Like I said, my stance on that is that he was armed. He had somebody coming towards him, look like trying to grab his gun. If it was me, I would have popped him too. I'm just keeping it real. But the whole thing is this. It's the intent. It's this young man crossing state lines to come to a community that's not his, to make the decision of being vigilante and cowboy. Okay? Me personally, I wouldn't find him guilty for killing him, but there wouldn't be no killings if his intent wasn't to come over state lines with guns and act like cowboys.
And discharges that gun twice. Luckily, that individual was not hit. But clearly, if he had been hit, the wound would have been severe and perhaps even fatal. Immediately after that, Anthony Huber, who is holding a skateboard, comes in and reaches for the defendant's gun. He grabs hold of the gun and tries to pull it away from the defendant. The defendant is wearing his AR-15 strapped to his body. There is a nylon strap around his entire body, and the gun is slung from that, so it is essentially attached to him.
He was looking like John Rambo. I mean, you remember Sylvester Stallone in the first Rambo 1, 2, and 3? That's how he was looking out there on the streets, like John Rambo. And word was out there, while those militiamen were alongside the protesters, there was a lot of uneasiness going on because the protesters couldn't figure out what side they were on. So yes, Kyle Rittenhouse was on his John Rambo that night.
Mr. Huber's efforts are unsuccessful because of that strap. And in that struggle, the gun winds up pointed directly at Mr. Huber's chest. The defendant pulls the trigger one time and discharges a round into Mr. Huber's chest, killing him instantly. A final individual by the name of Gage Grosskreutz.
So we got Maria Holly. She said that he had family in Kenosha. He was from Kenosha. Okay, that's more light being shown. Okay, I understand that. But what's all this crossing state lines with a weapon? That's the part we need to get to.
Has followed this chase on foot and has approached the defendant at this time. Mr. Grosskreutz is holding his cell phone that he'd been using to record the night's events for a live stream on Facebook in one hand, and a Glock semi-automatic pistol in the other hand. He runs up to the defendant. The defendant turns towards him with the AR-15. Mr. Grosskreutz raises his hand. The defendant then turns his rifle over, begins to examine it for a second. Mr. Grosskreutz takes this opportunity, and you will see in the photos and the videos that he blades his body with his left hand.
So Eddie Mariscoy says he was underage in a different state with a weapon. That is true. And somebody else said, Maria Holly said, he didn't live but a few miles from state lines. State lines is state lines. If he was outside of state lines and it was illegal for him to bring a weapon into the next state over, then that's a problem. This is where we're bringing up the whole intent thing. You know, the intent wasn't good. The intent wasn't good at all. Okay, you want to arm up, You're going to say, hey, we're going to shoot over state lines and we're going to help this community when you live in a whole different other state. That's kind of like you had intent. It was premeditated to go over there to start some shit if you can find the opportunity to do so. And Mr. Rittenhouse found the opportunity.
Reaching towards the defendant, his right arm is pulled back. This is the one with the gun in his hand. And as he's reaching for the defendant turns the AR-15 and discharges the 8th and final round.
And we got Jacob Pena. He said somebody brought a gun for him there. Somebody brought a gun for him. There was a gun waiting for him. Well, that's bad too, because he's not even supposed to be playing with no gun in that state.
Mr. Grosskreuz's right arm, the arm with the gun. Mr. Grosskreuz runs off, screaming for a medic. The defendant gets up.
Jacob Pena says the narrator is garbage.
And walks away. On that night, he killed 2 unarmed people. Shot at a third at very close range. And wounded Mr. Grosskreuz in the arm, who was armed with a gun. It is the state's position that this evidence demonstrates the criminal charges against the defendant. His intentional homicide of Anthony Huber and his reckless conduct towards the other defendants. Now, what I've just given you is the snapshot, but there's a wider context here. As we all discussed yesterday, this occurs during the context of the events following the shooting of Jacob Blake, which occurred on Sunday night, August 23rd, 2020. And we all know that within a short period of time after that, the community erupted in protests, looting, rioting, arson, and violence. Sunday night.
Shout out Mob Hit 773. Mob Hit 773.
And Monday night were 2 of the roughest nights that our community has ever seen. We are well aware of the damage that the uptown area along 22nd Avenue suffered. The probation and parole office on 60th Street, the furniture business there. Car Source, one of their locations on Sheridan, and other properties around town that were damaged. Fortunately, in the entire sequence of events, this was all property damage. And one of the things we all agreed on yesterday is life is more.
That may be true, Paulie, but I don't think that truth would come out. But see, he was grouped up with a group of militiamen who as well didn't live in that community. That's why I keep talking about the intent. What was the intent for? You know, they went there to be vigilantes and cowboys. Okay, they wasn't even from that community. So, you know, you go in there to help, or you go in there to stir more shit up. And it seems like from that night, more shit was stirred up. Like I said, the protesters were uneasy with these guys brandishing their weapons the way they were, standing on the sideline, also telling them to get out the way, just like the police were.
Important than property. Up until Tuesday night, despite all of the things that the community had experienced, no one had been killed. But what happened as the time went on was that the people of Kenosha, who felt a sense of outrage, began to protest. But like moths to a flame, tourists from outside of our community were drawn to the chaos here in Kenosha. People from outside of Kenosha came in and contributed to that chaos.
Tourist.
And it caused many of our citizens to fear for their safety. Fear for their homes and their families. Fear for their businesses. And take steps to protect themselves. Whether it is to arm themselves, board up their windows, move, or take time away from the community. All of those reactions were entirely understandable and reasonable. And no one here is going to tell you otherwise. As long as those are what you're left doing, there's no issue. But out of the hundreds of people that came to Kenosha during that week, the hundreds of people that were out on the streets that week, the evidence will show that the only person who killed anyone was the defendant, Kyle
Rittenhouse, Rambo 3. Like I said, I don't have a problem with what he did, the action he took to protect himself. I would have done the same thing. Hey, self-preservation is the first law of man. I got no problem with that. My thing is that you got all this, he say, she say in the chat. It's a whole bunch of narratives in the chat. But for what I'm getting from the sources is that he slid over state lines. Okay. Now what I'm hearing is, oh yeah, he came over state lines without the gun, but then received the gun. 16 years old at the time. So he telling me it's legal for him to carry the gun. Who was that? Let me see, main man. What's your name? Where you at? The one who said, do I know anything about gun laws? I know that 16-year-olds shouldn't be flailing a gun out in the street at night. I know that.
Rittenhouse. The evidence will show that hundreds of people were out on the street experiencing chaos and violence, and the only person who killed anyone was the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse. We will show you videos of some of the events that night, of police, tear gas, rubber bullets, and yet the only person who killed anyone was the defendant. There are fireworks going off, which is a loud noise, sounds like gunfire. There are guns being discharged, the sound of gunfire throughout our community that night. Hundreds of people are there experiencing this, and yet the only one who kills anyone is the defendant. We will show you video of hostile confrontation between literally hundreds of people on one side of the issue and on the other side of the issue. People getting up in each other's faces. And yet the only person who killed anyone is the defendant. Hundreds of people experienced those nights.
So I'm getting a little flack on what I just said. Jacob Pena, he's sticking to his story. He's been at my neck since we came out with this. And then we got Todd Guillory, who says that 16-year-olds can defend themselves. And you can have a rifle and operate one at 15 and younger, just can't purchase one. AR-15 is a rifle. And that's Jacob Pena right there. I hear you, Jacob. I have nothing for that. If that's the truth, that's the truth. Okay? We'll see how this unfolds on the trial. All right? I already said from my standpoint, what he did to defend himself, I have no problem with what he did. But if the situation was that he was with a group and there's intent, and intent can be proved, that they were not just there to make sure things were okay, but had some shit with them as well, then let him burn. That's all I'm saying, because if that was the case, then that's the reason why people got killed that night. If they didn't come in there for that, none of that would have happened.
Experience the night of August 25th. Experience that chaos. Hundreds of people. And yet
And then I got John McElroy's ghost. He comes back and says 16-year-olds cannot buy or own a gun. That's why I'm not getting into it with y'all in this chat. Y'all can say what y'all want. Y'all can have your opinions. Y'all can go at it with each other. We're going to see how this unfolds.
The only one who killed anyone is the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse. Recently, I heard someone sort of tongue-in-cheek joke that jury service is bringing in folks from our community and paying them $8 a day to help solve a murder. We're not asking you to solve a mystery in this case. In most homicide cases, the elements that I need to prove might be a little challenging, but here, there's no doubt, there will be no dispute in this record that the defendant had that gun that night, shot 8 bullets, 4 of them hit Joseph Rosenbaum, 2 of them at an unknown individual, 1 into Anthony Huber's chest, and 1 into Gage Grosskreuz's arm. That will not be in dispute. The central issue in this case is...
And that's one of your problems right there. And him doing what he did to protect himself, they're arguing that that even was a little excessive before the people who got hit. So that's a fight for him right there. Jacob Pena, you can say what you want, but it don't look good for your man. I'm just keeping it real. It don't look good. Hey, we know our court cases work out. It can go any way. it just don't look good for him.
It's going to be self-defense. And the judge is giving you an instruction, which I want to highlight here, because there are some factors that I'd like you to keep in mind when you hear the evidence in this case. The defendant used deadly force. There is a privilege under our laws to use deadly force, but it's a very limited privilege. That privilege, according to the law, indicates that the defendant can only use deadly force if he
Shout out to Chronically Fabulous. Chronically Fabulous says, hypothetically speaking, how do you think this would play out if Kyle were a POC? Well, for those who don't know what POC means, I'm pretty sure most of you are intelligent in this chat. Person of color. Oh, it would have been foul. Okay? It'd be going down fast. Okay? That's how I feel.
reasonably believed that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself.
So y'all doing a lot of arguing in the chat about who can, at what age you can own a rifle, and people are saying it's 16. Some people saying it's not 16. I put the link in the chat. I can put it down again. You know, we're not going to get this understood with people just writing in the chat. Come on up and talk about it. Those who are opposed, who don't think that a 16-year-old can buy a rifle, come up. Those who don't, come up. But I'm tired of seeing it in the chat.
In determining whether or not those beliefs were reasonable, the standard is what a person of ordinary intelligence and prudence would have believed in the defendant's position under the circumstances that existed at the time of the offense. The reasonableness of the defendant's beliefs must be determined from the standpoint of the defendant.
Shout out to Constitution Matters. Come on up, bro. TCM. Come on up.
At the time of his acts, and not with the benefit of hindsight. You are, essentially, the people of ordinary intelligence and prudence who will apply that standard of reasonableness to the defendant's behavior and make a determination as to whether or not his use of deadly force was reasonable. Was it reasonable for the defendant to believe that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself? So, let's talk about the context of that evening. And I'm going to try and go in a little bit of chronological order to set things up for you so you understand the evidence as it comes into this trial. The first witness you're going to hear from in this trial is a man by the name of Dominic Black. Dominic Black was, at the time of this incident, dating Mackenzie Rittenhouse, who is the defendant's sister. And through Mackenzie, Dominic Black got to know the defendant. And they spent a lot of time together in the months leading up to August 25th, 2020. In fact, on May 1st of 2020, Dominic Black bought the AR-15 for the defendant. That occurred up in Ladysmith, Wisconsin. Dominic Black used money that was given to him by the defendant to go to an Ace Hardware up in Ladysmith and buy the gun in Dominic Black's name. Now you might ask, why was it necessary for Dominic Black to do that? Why couldn't the defendant do that? Because the defendant was 17. And Dominic Black and the defendant knew that because the defendant is 17, he cannot purchase a gun. He cannot legally own a gun. And so this was in effect a straw purchase on behalf of Dominic Black, on behalf of the defendant. After the gun is purchased in Ladysmith, Dominic Black and the defendant spent a little time up there at Dominic Black's family's hunting property. And they fired both that AR-15 and one that Dominic Black already had. And the two of them are practicing using their AR-15 at a shooting range that they have on that property. And Mr. Black will tell you some more about that. And they agreed that that gun would not go home with the defendant to his home in Antioch, Illinois. It would stay here in Kenosha at the residence of Dominic Black's stepfather in a locked gun case. And in fact, after the two of them returned from Ladysmith in early May of 2020, the gun stayed at that residence here in Kenosha until the day of August 25th, 2020. On On the night leading up to August 25th, that Monday night, the defendant stayed over at Mr. Black's residence here in Kenosha. And the two of them decided on that next day, Tuesday, August 25th, that they...
Hey, I want to give a special shout out to Mob Hit 773. Yo, bro, that almost slipped past me. I'm doing a whole lot of things, but I appreciate you, man, for that super chat. Shout out to Mob Hit 773.
They would do something about what was going on in Kenosha. So one point earlier in the day, they come down here. They work on cleaning up some graffiti on some buildings here downtown. Then they decide they want to come back later that night and protect a local business. A business called Car Source, which is located at 59th and Sheridan. Now, as I talked to you a little bit about yesterday, Car Source actually has 3 locations very close in this downtown area. One of them was on the east side of Sheridan Road at 58th and Sheridan. Now, either on Sunday or Monday night, I think it was on Monday night, August 24th, that entire property was pretty much destroyed. There were multiple cars in the parking lot that were set fire and completely burned out. The building itself was damaged as well. Right across the street from there is another Car Source location that also sold used cars. And some of those cars had been damaged on the night of Monday.
I'm going to pause this real quick. I got Green Knight in here. I got Wolfie Gladly in here. I'm about to let them in. We're going to commentate a little over this video. Shout out to Wolfie. What up, bro?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
I'm good. Hey, Gray, I got you in. Gray, I'll mute your mic whenever you're ready.
Hello.
What's going on? So, my question, right? For anybody that came up, and y'all the first two that came up, what's the situation with the gun thing for a 16-year-old kid over there in Kenosha, Wisconsin? Is he able to purchase a weapon, or is it illegal for? I'm sorry, not purchase a weapon. I'm more concerned with him handling his possession. Yeah, is it legal or is it illegal?
I'm not clear on the rules over there. I would lean toward the direction no, but he wasn't.
I looked it up.
He wasn't 16. He wasn't 16 when this happened. He was 17, I believe. So I'm not sure on that either. Maybe 17 makes a difference. I'm not sure.
Okay. What did you find out, Gray? What did you say?
All right. So I'm just going to read the article from the top. Wisconsin generally prohibits the intentional transfer of any firearm to an individual under age 18. The state also generally prohibits the possession of a firearm by any person under age 18. These restrictions do not apply, however, when the firearm is being used by a person under age 18 when supervised by an adult during target practice or a course of instruction. Wisconsin law generally provides that for hunting purposes, the minimum age for possession or control of a firearm is 12. A person aged 12 but under age 14 may not hunt without being accompanied by his or her parent, guardian, or a person of 18 or older who is designated by the parent or guardian. A young person 12 to 14 may possess a firearm if they're enrolled in an instruction course, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so
that basically means no, right?
By a parent or guardian or someone who's been designated as your parent or guardian.
All right, stop for me real quick. Stop for me real quick, because I'm about receipts. I need receipts. Where are you getting this from?
So this is coming from, I'll put the link right here. It's giffords.org/law center.
There's no differentiation between, because Jacob Pena is saying can't possess a handgun with a rifle all day long. There's no differentiation between handgun and rifle.
No, these are all definitely for rifles. Like you don't go hunting with a handgun.
For guns, period, or just for rifles?
These definitely are laws written for rifles. You don't go hunting with a handgun unless like you're a weirdo.
Okay, so that's just basically covering rifles, period, which he had.
Are you smoking cloves? No, that's just a cigarette. Yeah, I think those are laws for rifles. Yes.
You put the link up.
Yeah, I just put it in like the inside chat.
What was the law again?
I can link it in the outside.
Go over that again for everybody.
I just need the title so I can put it up on the screen.
It's Gifford's law. It's the first thing that came up. Like I could link the Wisconsin legislature. It says the same thing, but it's got like way too much formatting.
And it says he can or can't.
You can if you're basically supervised by a parent or guardian or somebody who's been designated by your parent or guardian.
And that could have very well been the case. And yeah, there might have been people who
He
were of
wasn't
age.
supervised at the time of the shootings.
No, I mean, it has to basically be for if you're on a hunting trip or if you're in a class or you're at like a range. Like you have to be some designated purpose. You can't just be like, I'm out here being I've deputized myself and I'm the sheriff of this town now. Like that's definitely
so if that's the case,
a 16 or 17-year-old can decide for themselves. No,
if that in itself is a case, is the case, he should face punishment, but not very strict punishment, because from everything I studied this shit when it happened. I looked at all the BG on the scene. You know what I'm talking about? He always gets his footage. He puts it up. BG on the scene had the original footage. From all the clips I saw was, what happened was a dumpster was burnt on fire and at that point they're not peaceful protesters anymore. They're looting and rioting, right? Would everybody agree with me? Do you think burning a dumpster on fire is a peaceful protest?
Not everybody. Not everybody. You can't generalize.
I mean, that's not your dumpster. That's not your dumpster. That's an asset to some company, Waste Management or whoever owns that dumpster, right? So what happened was Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to make excuses. It's not a right, white, black thing or nothing like that. Kyle Rittenhouse was there to try to protect the community from burning the fuck down or something, right? And there was a lot of other people like him. He wasn't the only one. With guns.
It was a militia. It was a group of guys. It was a militia. He was with a group of guys.
All right. So what happened was that he saw this dumpster get set on fire, and he runs over with a fire extinguisher and puts it out. This makes the Rosenhaus guy, I believe that's his last name, Rosenhaus or Rosenblum, something like that. The one that got the first one.
The guy who had the mental problems. He had mental problems.
Yeah, the one that said, I'm not afraid to go back to jail and all the other stuff, right? This made him chase Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, they say he was shot in the back, but we clearly see him get chased behind that SUV or car or whatever it was, and we can't see what happens after that in the video. But it clearly stemmed from him extinguishing the fucking dumpster. So, the dude chases him, the dude gets shot. Everything I saw after that was reasonable self-defense. I don't know what happened with the first guy. The first guy there's no clue because you can't really see it. There's no camera on it. It's behind that car.
All right, well, if you pause for me real quick, I want to let everybody know that this is the information that Greg gave me. Minimum age to purchase and possess in Wisconsin, and he just said that. So y'all can type in Gifford's Law Center. Let me see if I can copy this for y'all and put it in.
But it's clearly noted that he didn't purchase it. The guy Andrew Black or what Dylan Black, whatever the hell his name is, something Mr. Black bought the shit for him.
Just do that link up in the chat, y'all, if that helps. I know y'all can't copy out of there, but that's all I could do. This is the title right here. Minimum age to purchase and possess in Wisconsin. So
possess. That's the important word there. Yeah.
Yeah, minimum age to purchase and possess in Wisconsin. Y'all probably could Google that and it'll come up. But shout out to Greg. Greg, that's what's up, man. Appreciate you. I gotta see what Painter talking about because he was saying
the big thing that makes everybody clash in this whole story. The big bipolar, polarizing subject is one side of people say, hey, this guy was there to shoot and kill protesters. And then his defense side is saying, hey, well, look, I mean, and I can kind of agree. Like, hey, When have I ever like nudged you on the shoulder, Resistance, and said, "Hey, there's a guy with an AR-15. Yo, let's go run and chase him."
I mean, listen, that's not my beef right there. I have no problem with that. Him protecting himself. Like I said, if it happened to you, if it happened to me, I would have did the same thing. I mean, I got a gun. I'm not gonna let him take the gun and shoot me.
And shoot
But
you, yeah.
other people, you know what I'm saying? I can't listen. The first law of man is self-preservation. I have no problem with that. It's all about the intent. Like, what were they really
Well,
there for? That's what
well,
needs to get down. That's what needs to get down when
if
they.
you chase the cop down, what do you expect to happen to you?
Yeah, but see, that's
And
not
they
what.
get away with that shit all the time, right? Because he fucking was about to lunge on me and shit, right? I had to shoot, and it's justified, right? So if it's a whole different story for this guy because he's not a fucking cop, you know what I'm saying? Let's take race out of it the whole fucking way. It's not because the people he shot were all white, right? Correct?
Oh, it was white on white, definitely.
Yeah, it was all white on white. It wasn't, so let's stop that. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. The court can't call them victims in this case because of the way the matter of the case. So they're not allowed to. That's how it works in court. So they can either call them protesters, rioters, looters, or whatever. So they choose to call them protesters. This is how I'm seeing it written.
Right. Hold
Right.
on. Well, Jacob came back up. Jacob Painter, he said, resistance said himself, preservation is priority number one. Right. But listen, we just read the law, Jacob. I need you to rebut that real quick because I just had the law up as far as the proper age to handle a rifle in Wisconsin. So, if you got
Well,
some.
let's take it deeper than that. Let's say he didn't have a gun, right? And somebody chased him down for extinguishing a fire, and the dude gouged his freaking heart out of his chest like it was like a Mortal Kombat fucking fatality and shit, right?
I mean, what if he would have just took the gun and shot more than Kyle shot? You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that's not what I'm stomping on right there. I want to know.
Not you. I'm just saying in general. People.
Yeah, I want to know what the intent was of him with this whole group. Okay, yeah, he was protecting the area and everything and checking him out on the dumpster fire. But what were they really there for? And I want to see if they're going to get to the bottom of that in this case.
They just didn't want to see private businesses burn to the ground like we were seeing all over the country and shit. That shit was pretty sad because there was a lot of small businesses that were getting fucked, especially during the pandemic.
Right. I'm gonna shoot onto this video a little bit more.
How many businesses were burned down?
I have no idea.
Oh my!
So there's really the big one that everybody points to is the one that was next to the police station in that one town.
Well, not just burned down.
Well, let me put a couple of sentences next to each other before you step.
Yeah,
yeah. So there was one that was a tire store that burned down that was adjacent to a police station. They found out that wasn't actually started by anybody in the BLM protest or anybody that was actually marching. It was a dude who was in a hoodie and he was in like pack gear, like fucking combat shit.
Right.
And he was basically, they found out later that he was a white supremacist, and he just like showed up as like a boogaloo boy or just someone to just be in all black. And,
a provocateur.
And yeah,
I saw
this in a couple of different places. There was one, this dude just walks up and starts like breaking windows with a hammer, and all the BLM protesters are like, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yes,
they chase him off.
Yes, that was the same shit I saw in Philadelphia. We went to the art museum, had a peaceful talk about what the fucking mission was, right? And then everybody walked off, and then when we went to go to the city, from the art museum back to the inner city. The first incident I ever saw was a white dude with all black hoodie and black mask. You couldn't tell who he was. You could just tell he was white from a little bit of skin that was showing on his face and shit in his hands.
Ace again. What's up, bro?
He was spray painting BLM or whatever on a Ruby Tuesdays, right? And then I saw the black guy roll up to him and push him off. Like, that's not what the fuck we're about. And then that guy scurried off and disappeared into the mass amounts of people that were there.
Wait, the guy who was tagging that building with BLM was a cop.
Great.
Probably.
Just let you know.
Probably, yeah, because the business owners are going to show up and say, who spray paints BLM on my store? It had to be a black person, but it was a white kid.
Exactly.
And that's the
Like
first
that's what's
weird
going.
shit I
So
noticed. I was like,
this is a
Hold
very
on,
old
Whoopi.
game.
Hold on,
You can
Whoopi.
go
Hey,
all the way
Greg, what
back
was
to
the
like
number
the
on the
60s,
businesses
and one of the most
that burnt down?
popularized cases of this was the Chicago 7, where these liberal,
That was with
progressive leftist
that was with
socialist
that was
activists that were there for the Democratic convention were all arrested, and it was found out later because federal agents testified on at the case that they knew, they had intelligence that it was actually a bunch of like cops that were off duty and
right.
fucking white nationalists that did it and started it and framed
That's
the
what set it
the
off, though.
socialists. Huh?
But Greg, I wanted you to get back to the part where you was talking about the number of businesses that was burnt down. You were getting into that after you said that.
The number is vanishingly small. Like I'm confident that there's not a lot of that happened, and the few instances that you can point to, like it's not clear at all that BLM protesters had anything to do with it, and in fact, there's some evidence that it was not BLM protesters that did it. So the greater point leading on from that is, if we're looking at instances of property damage and saying, okay, well that justifies taking lives, then what happens when it's a false flag? It's a bad agent. It's an agent of the state that's acting in some cases to create this circumstance where violence is now justified to take people's lives. So what happens then? Does that still make sense if you have bad actors that are forcing a scenario, that are creating a situation
I think
where
we've
people are
seen that.
going to die?
I think we've seen that since last year on the few clips that we've seen on YouTube. I mean, even with the developments of it, we're seeing bricks and frozen bottles of water stashed on the corners and stuff. I mean, I seen it in the many protests that I was in. I've seen the groups who were there to start to be in bad character and to shift the situation a different way, or the police that was on the front line to become over excessive and violent. I seen that, you know. So the question that now is like, well, they've been doing it. What are we going to do? There's no protest going on now, but if it happens again, what are we going to do to prevent that? I don't think that's preventable.
I mean,
Well, I mean, the way that you prevent that is that you send Kyle Rittenhouse to jail. You say that it's not acceptable for, some 16 or 17-year-old kid to cross state lines with an illegal gun, claim that he's protecting property rights, and end up murdering people because he felt threatened in a place where he had
I
no
wouldn't
business
call it
being in the
murder. I
first
wouldn't call
place.
it murder. I wouldn't call it murder.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I mean,
literally what he's on trial for, dude. So I'm going to
Greg,
call him murder.
you said,
They're not going to prove it. If you want to claim murder, you're going to have to prove that he intentionally went there to murder people.
If a holdout ends up acquitting this dude, that doesn't make it not murder, right? Like
It's all made for
because
more
there's
riots.
like, are you saying that any time that a cop has been acquitted by a court, by a corrupt judge, by a DA that decided not to go the distance, that like all of those aren't actually crimes that really happened? Really? That's where you're going to go with this?
Every time he shot somebody, he was being chased down by some
No,
people.
answer my question. Let's use your logic and extend that to every cop that's ever gotten
my
off.
logic is what I saw when he got chased down in the street, right?
Okay, great.
They were
So now
like,
let's
there
take
he
that
is,
and
let's
apply that
chase
to
him.
every cop that's ever gotten off. So if he gets off, I guess it wasn't a crime. It wasn't murder. So I guess every cop that's ever committed murder and gotten off it wasn't murder. The cop
Derek
didn't commit a
Chauvin,
crime.
Derek
Clearly.
Chauvin committed murder on camera.
The
He didn't get
justice
off.
system is inerrant, right? There's never a mistake. There's never a corrupt judge.
No,
That's
you
why
can't
there's no
trust it.
such
You
thing as
can't
an
trust the
appeals
justice
court or a
system.
Supreme Court.
You can't trust the justice system. Okay, who's talking? What's happening?
Oh, did I get muted?
Getting muted. 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 Getting muted.
I think I got muted. I don't know.
What's the deal with the muting? Do you want to say something, Resistance, or are you just muting us? Because it's like nobody's hearing anything now.
In this case, the defendant used deadly force. There is a privilege under our laws to use deadly force, but it's a very limited privilege. That privilege, according to the law, indicates that the defendant can only use deadly force if he reasonably believed that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. In determining whether or not those beliefs were reasonable, the standard is what a person of ordinary intelligence and prudence would have believed in the defendant's position under the circumstances that existed at the time of the offense. The reasonableness of the defendant's beliefs must be determined from the standpoint of the defendant at the time of his acts and not with the benefit of hindsight. You are essentially the people of ordinary intelligence and prudence who will apply that standard of reasonableness to the defendant's behavior and make a determination as to whether or not his use of deadly force was reasonable. Was it reasonable for the defendant to believe that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself? So, let's talk about the context of that evening. I'm going to try and go in a little bit of chronological order to set things up for you so you understand the evidence as it comes in this trial. The first witness you're going to hear from in this trial is a man by the name of Dominic Black. Dominic Black was, at the time of this incident, dating Mackenzie Rittenhouse, who is the defendant's sister. And through Mackenzie, Dominic Black got to know the defendant. And they spent a lot of time together in the months leading up to August 25th, 2020. In fact, on May 1st of 2020, Dominic Black bought the AR-15 for the defendant. That occurred up in Ladysmith, Wisconsin. Dominic Black used money that was given to him by the defendant to go to an Ace Hardware up in Ladysmith and buy the gun in Dominic Black's name. Now you might ask, why was it necessary for Dominic Black to do that? Why couldn't the defendant do that? Because the defendant was 17. And Dominic Black and the defendant knew that because the defendant is 17, he cannot purchase a gun. He cannot legally own a gun.
Can we pause this? You there, Resistance? I can't hear you. Are you muted?
What's up?
Oh, I just wanted to point out some shit. Like, all right, the dude's 17. He's a year away from 18. 17, 18, just two numbers away from each other, right? Why can't somebody be able to defend themselves? Like, this is my question. Like, why can't everybody be able to defend themselves? I
Well,
think
I don't think the fact that it was him speaking about defending himself, it was about the intent. He wasn't able to buy a rifle, so he intentionally paid somebody else who was old enough to get it to purchase it for him. And I think they're just trying to show the elements of intent of
yeah, because of their rules, against the Constitution.
Say that again.
Where in the Constitution does it say what age you have to be able to bear arms?
Well, I mean, you have a point there. It doesn't say. But I mean,
You know what I'm saying? That's their little rules and that's their litigation and all that shit. I get it. And like
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
it's gonna stick.
I
To
mean,
a
well,
jury, it's gonna stick. It's just a damn shame. I mean, he's only 7. Oh, one more year, he would have been able to have that gun.
I
Like
mean,
it's just
He could
weird.
have been 18 and it still wouldn't have been self-defense. Have you not been listening to what the guy's been saying the
Nah,
entire time?
he could. This
It's
is the prosecutor. He can
the
say whatever he
reason
wants to
when
say.
the only reason you're allowed to use deadly force in a situation like that is if
I
you're
watched the
afraid
videos.
that you're about to die.
Yeah, I watched the videos. Yeah, that dude was
Yeah.
afraid.
So no one there was going to like tear him limb from limb. Like, who are you kidding me? Like, who there is built like the fucking Hulk that's going to just walk up to that dude and
What
literally
about?
rip him apart with his
All
bare
right,
hand? No one
you
there
ever
had a
see?
weapon. No one was drawing a
Did
knife.
you watch the second video of the second guy that got killed and the other dude that got his arm blown off, dude? There was a mob of people chasing this kid. He stumbled on the street. There were the one dude that got his arm blown off was trying to lunge for his weapon and shit.
No, dude, I don't know
It's the
what
same
video you're
fucking
talking about.
situation as if you had
But
a
like,
weapon and they could take it from you and turn it on you and kill you.
what
A
color
mob
is
of
the sky
people.
in your world? Wow, no, that's not what happened at all.
I watched it. I mean, I looked at it
Sure.
and studied it. I said, "Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong?" I
America's gonna
finally
watch
came
it
to a
here.
conclusion.
The world's going to watch it here, and we'll all get to see it. I'm sure that video is going to be highly scrutinized, and
That video came out
that's not
already.
what happened, dude.
It's already there. That video's out.
let's move on with the
The
video.
reasonableness standard is that
Let's
you
move
have
on
to
with the
expect that
video. See
people
what
are
we
going
can get out of
to
it.
die there. If you thought that those people trying to disarm you are going to kill you, you lost it.
Repeat that, Greg. I had played the video. Say that again. That statement you
At
made.
that point, people are trying to disarm you because you're threatening everybody with a gun. So you're the threat to everyone else. This notion that some kid walking into a situation and declaring himself so terrified he needs to start like free firing on a crowd of peaceful protesters is insanity.
Listen, I think the kid got caught up in the hype and shit, but I think he ended up being scared for his life. That's just my honest belief.
Well, that's fine. If he's going to be so terrified in that situation, he shouldn't have been there.
Yeah. It was a bad decision to even fucking go there, but then he ended up in a situation where he was scared for his life.
The whole point of what was his intent there. That's what they got to.
I don't think his intentions were bad. I think he got into a situation where he was in over his head, and he fucking was scared for his life. That's just my. I'm not trying to protect the guy or nothing. I'm just saying that's what I saw. I saw the
I
guy.
don't think him paying somebody, giving somebody the money to purchase a weapon is going to do good.
I didn't see a guy that got scared and just started shooting all recklessly and just hitting bystanders too. I saw a guy that hit his fucking target. That were going after him, and that was it. And nobody else got hurt except for the people that were going after him. That's all I saw in the videos. I didn't see that reckless, fucking wraparound spread shot where it was like it could have hurt a bunch of kids or something.
That's not my argument. The point of him being there is still cloudy. Like, what was the point of being?
Because he
missed. At least as often as he hit.
But what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the charge. The charge is murder. Like murder means intent, and the charge is fucking screwed up. They fucked up again. It's gonna fucking. I'm telling you, dude. It should have been manslaughter, the worst degree of manslaughter that you can, right? But it's not murder. This dude, you have to prove he intended to kill these people.
Of starting a gunfight.
He didn't go there with the intent. He got chased. He got chased by the first guy, and that led to a bullet. And then fucking the other people were like, "There he is," and they chased him.
Why was he being chased? They were telling him you're not allowed to be armed here.
Why would you chase a person with a fucking machine gun?
Because he's got an illegal gun, and everyone was telling him he's not allowed to be armed.
It just sounds like, yo, there's a buzzsaw. Let's run into it. It's just stupid.
Hey, Social Crusader, I don't know what you mean by Zulu, but if you got bad intentions with that, you could go ahead and roll out yourself. But if I apologize. I don't
So
know
I'm
nobody
just
in here
I
named
mean, the
Zulu,
flip
so
side
I
of
don't
this
know if
entire
you
argument is
look,
yeah,
look.
be
like
Most
successful.
people run from the guy with the
Hey, look, I'm about to
AK-47.
move on with the video. Let's find some more points to talk on.
so everybody needs to run away from this 17-year-old that showed up. You've just conceded that he's a maniac.
How much safer would that make it be instead of going and attacking and try to fucking make him shoot
Hey,
you?
here's my counterpoint. If
Thank you.
Time up there at Dominic Black's family's hunting property. And they fired both that AR-15 and one that Dominic Black already had. And the two of them are practicing using their AR-15s at a shooting range that they have on that property. And Mr. Black will tell you some more about it. Here in Kenosha until the day of August 25th, 2020. On the night leading up to August 25th, that Monday night, the defendant stayed over at Mr. Black's residence here in Kenosha. And the two of them decided on that next day, Tuesday, August 25th, that they would do something about what was going on in Kenosha. So one point earlier in the day, they come down here. They work on cleaning up some graffiti on some buildings here downtown. Then they decide they want to come back later that night and protect a local business, a business called Car Source, which is located at 59th and Sheridan. Now, as I talked to you a little bit about yesterday, Car Source actually has 3 locations very close in this downtown area. One of them was on the east side of Sheridan Road at 58th and Sheridan. And either on Sunday or Monday night, I think it was on Monday night, August 24th, that entire property was pretty much destroyed. There were multiple cars in the parking lot that were set fire and completely burned out. The building itself was damaged as well. Right across the street from there is another Car Source location that also sold used cars. And some of those cars had been damaged on the night of Monday, August 24th. So on Tuesday, when the defendant and Mr. Black are out and about, they encounter one of the owners of Car Source. And they talk to him about protecting their 59th Street location that night. And there's some discussion about that. In the afternoon, Mr. Black and the defendant go out to Jelinski's out on Highway 31, Green Bay Road. And they acquire straps so that they can sling those guns around themselves when they come back to the downtown area that night. And eventually later that evening, they return. They meet up with some other folks that are interested in protecting Car Source. Originally, they start out at 63rd Street Car Source, which is the third and final Car Source location. But then they agree, we're going to go to the 59th Street, 59th and Sheridan location and protect that location to make sure no one damages the cars, no one damages the property. And I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. Protecting that property is entirely lawful, totally understandable, and it's something that many people here in Kenosha did. And there's a group of people, including the defendant and Dominic Black, that take up positions at 59th Street. Some of them, like the defendant, are on the ground in the parking lot, where as people are walking by on the street, they're having interactions with these people. Dominic Black will testify he took up a position on the roof. He did that because he didn't want to be on the ground, close to where other folks were, close to where potential issues might arise. He wanted to stay a little bit removed from all of that. Didn't want to get directly involved in it. You will hear and see videos of sequence of events going on around Kenosha that night. The evening begins with large-scale protests, large-scale, no other way to put it, rioting that's occurring right outside these windows, right in front of the courthouse here at Civic Center Park. There is a crowd of police that have lined up to protect this building, to protect the public safety building, which is right next door. And there are a large number of protesters that are agitating. They are screaming at the police. They are throwing projectiles. Police are shooting rubber bullets, tear gas, etc. It is a very volatile situation at Civic Center Park.
All right, guys. I just asked that when the video plays, when I speak Just let me play the video so we could get that out the way. I just wanted to let y'all know that. But y'all got anything to say out of that right there?
Is this the attorney for the defendant, or is this the prosecutor talking?
It's the prosecution.
Okay, so the prosecution is trying to go soft until they make their point ahead of here. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, my fault, Gray.
The prosecution is trying to be very lenient and soft and like, we understand we have rights, and then they're gonna get to their bombshells or whatever. I get what's happening.
Why do you think this is going soft?
Right now they're trying to say, look, man, like, he has every right to, like, you know, do what he was doing up until a certain point where they get to their bombshell. They try to fucking bury the guy. Like,
I think
yeah,
he's kind of pointing out
I support you. We have the
that
right
at
to
every
protect
turn he's
businesses.
kind of in the wrong. Like that's what I'm hearing. Like there's
Well,
all these failings on their part.
No. He's building a case. Prosecutors are smart. They know, especially these big cases and shit. They hire the best ones and that are in the state and shit, and they fucking go hard as fuck. Fucking, he's really trying to garner the jury. This is what he's doing right now. He wants to get into the hearts of the jury and say, okay, look, I sympathize with the businesses that need to be protected because their cars were fucked up and day after day and this, and they met up, and I totally agree with that. But
Bro,
it's going to
you're
come
not
to the
reading
point
between
where
the
he
lines.
drops the
Yeah,
nuclear bomb.
This is my thing. Gray gave the information of Gifford's law that clearly said that it went against everything that he did that night as far as handling a rifle. I mean, from that right there, he's guilty.
Yeah, I'm also not understanding how you're interpreting what's happening in the court the way you're interpreting it. So he just
Guilty of
pointed
what?
out
What is he guilty of, though?
He just pointed out he went from one location that's a tire store to another location that's a tire store to third location that's a tire store.
In my
He's
opinion,
not
he's
standing
guilty.
guard at like any of these locations. He's clearly using this as an excuse to go from location to location to look to pick a fight. He's not looking for property to defend. He's finding defensible property at each location. He's looking for someone to shoot. That's what's happening. That's the narrative that he's building. Like, you just have to be able to connect the dots, man.
I mean, and they weren't out there for the police. They weren't with the protesters going against the police. Actually, you see clips of the police thanking them. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Y'all need some water? We really appreciate what y'all did tonight. So, like,
no. Look,
like I said,
I
he was with a group.
One other thing, I'm seeing in the chat someone saying he was being shot at. No one shot at him. No one shot at him.
The resistance. Yo, I wanted to go back to something that you said in the beginning there. You said that damn, fuck. I was just on it, but everybody's talking amongst each other and shit. In the beginning, you said something about Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh, about he was there with the gun, and he was a minor, right?
Right.
So he's guilty. You said, right? What is he guilty of? Being in possession of a handgun as a minor, or murder? Because there's a difference. He was in possession of a handgun as a minor, and him defending himself with that handgun doesn't make him guilty of murder. It makes him guilty of possession of a fucking handgun as a minor. And the charge is murder. And this is where Casey Anthony got off, because they tried to charge her with murder. If they would have charged her with, what do they call that? The other shit, you know? Fucking, they would have got her manslaughter, right?
So
but
my answer to that is that he wasn't supposed to have the gun. If he didn't have the gun, he wouldn't have been out there.
But that doesn't mean he's guilty of murder.
The sequence of events wouldn't have happened.
No. He could have been out there without the gun.
I don't know. I'm listen.
He could have been out there without the gun and had a knife.
Huh?
He could have been out there without a gun and had a knife.
But he wasn't, was he?
He wasn't.
Oh, well, if he was with a knife and he killed somebody and slit their throat and they died on the sidewalk and
That
shit,
dude
it's
wasn't
still
killing anybody
self-defense
with
if
a
he's
knife,
getting
bro.
attacked.
He
No,
wasn't
but
killing anybody with a knife, bro.
we talking about the actual facts of what happened.
Well, you're talking about gun charges of a minor, and we're talking about murder and self-defense. It's two different subjects, bro. We can't freaking forget that shit. We can't get all wrapped up in this. We have to remember what the legal shit is.
Right. You can't go on a hunting expedition to 3 different tire locations saying I'm protecting property and then claim that you have self-defense because you're very obviously on the hunt.
It's
You're
all
very
about the video.
obviously looking
I
for
mean,
people.
Wolfie does have a point. What is your answer to that, Gray? He says that is he guilty of murder or is he guilty of having handling a rifle at
Underage.
Underage?
He's clearly guilty of murder. He's going from location to location looking for someone to shoot.
Murder and
That's
self-defense.
literally what the attorney is saying in real time as we're pausing.
Murder and self-defense has nothing to do with handling a gun underage. That shit.
Yes,
that shit
correct.
can't even.
And I'm not. That's why I'm not referencing anything having to do with his age. I'm describing the pattern of behavior that he's engaging in. If he was
the video showed me everything.
70,
He extinguished a fucking dumpster that was on fire, and they all tried to attack him. That's where the first bullet came from. And then when they fucking said, "Oh, that's the guy," they all chased him, and then from there, that was like clear self-defense. I don't know what happened behind the car with the first guy. That's the big issue. I don't know what happened behind the car with the first guy. He ended up with a bullet in his back, they're saying. So that's weird.
That we ignoring the fact
really
that
weird.
He wasn't by himself.
He was being chased, but then the guy ends up with a bullet behind his back. It's just I don't know.
It's almost like he wasn't.
Maybe he aimed the gun and the guy turned around and then he shot. I don't know.
The fact still remains that he wasn't by himself. He was with a group that considered themselves a militia. So what was the intent? To be down there anyway. They wasn't there to help the protesters.
Nobody else shot. Did anybody else in that group shoot anybody? Was anybody else chased and attacked?
Nah, but it was some.
There's a bunch of elements, bro.
There was some back and forth going on between those militiamen and the protesters, and we have
to consider every element, though.
There was a sense of unease with the protesters because they didn't understand what was going on, who they was with. If they was with the police or they was with them. And I mean, come on. Like, I mean, I've been through it all last summer, 2020. I'm at all these protests, and it seemed like 75% of the people are not from the neighborhood.
Right. So, at a certain point, it seemed like people were just doing this just to loot, and it wasn't about the cause. And that's the point where they were at in Kenosha.
I don't agree with that. It was a small percentage looting. It was a lot of groups. There were a lot of groups. There were a lot of.
I was in it, dude, in Philly, and it broke my fucking heart in the Market District and shit, dude. We were trying to get an Uber back. I was with Dan and fucking James Madison Audits. We were trying to get an Uber back. We couldn't get one because there was boxes and shit thrown everywhere. People were. I saw this one dude jump out of this broken window, and he handed his chick a purse and like, which one do you want? Because like, well, I guess one he was gonna sell on eBay or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And I was like, this shit hurts, you know what I'm saying? That sucks, yo, because my whole fucking city has gotten fucked up, you know? Like,
well, I'm not saying it wasn't no loot. There was a good amount of looting going on, but there were more.
Dude, they didn't wait till night. It was daytime.
I'm speaking about throughout the spring and whole summer of 2020. There was more peaceful protests than there was violent protests. And majority of the people that attended these protests weren't even from the neighborhood. That's what I... Well, let me move on to this video real quick, bro.
There was hold on, one more thing. There was a guy in front of me. He was like, I got 1,533 people watching here on Instagram. Which one do we hit next? And then like some other random chick runs up to them like, let's hit it. I was like, what the fuck is happening in front of me right here?
Shout out Constitution Matters. Have a good night, bro.
Now, that's it 56th and Sheridan, about 3 blocks north of the car source where the defendant was. But as the evening goes on, the police decide to move the line of protesters south on Sheridan. And eventually, they pass the car source at 59th and Sheridan. The police establish a line at 60th and Sheridan, 1 block south. Now, as that process is going on, many of these protesters pass by the defendant and the people that he's with at 59th Street. Words are exchanged. There is confrontation. There is a little bit of hostility. No one is hurt. No one fires a gun. No one is injured.
Chuck Hogan, you need to be a little more specific. Who are you speaking about?
But clearly there's antagonism. It is clear that this is a crowd that is not on the same side as the defendant, that does not see him as an ally, does not see him in his group as someone that they identify with. And as I said, there is a hostile exchange there for a while. In fact, at one point, members of the crowd pull one of the dumpsters from the property out into the street and attempt to start it on fire. And some of the other folks that are there with the defendant go out and put the fire out and have some very harsh interactions with those people in the street. I believe the evidence will show that it is this process that demonstrated for the defendant that this is a crowd that is not a safe crowd to be in. This is a crowd that does not view him as an ally. This is a crowd that if he ventures out into it, there could be problems.
And that's what he did. He ventured out into it.
He extinguished a dumpster.
Was that
This is how he's trying to draw it up.
Was that dumpster on the property he was protecting?
It was in the public.
Huh? But see,
it was in the public. It was rolled out into the street, and then it was in the public on the road.
So, do you think he would have did that if he didn't have that gun?
Do you think you would have fucked somebody up for extinguishing a fire in a dumpster?
Do you think I would fuck somebody up for extinguishing a fire in a dumpster?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that. But do you think I would have did that?
There's questions.
Huh?
That's the questions that need to be asked.
The point I'm making, I'm
not on either side. I'm just saying, yo, look, hey, man, motherfuckers got killed. Shit happened.
What I'm saying is that the intent of him, it's like a tyrant cop to me. He walking around intimidating. Yeah, he can have a baby face and everything, but I think like Gray was saying, he was out, out there like he was on some Rambo shit.
All right. So he was on the Rambo shit. This is I'm being just an objectional voice right here, right? So he was on the Rambo shit by extinguishing a fire that somebody started that they wanted fucking to burn some shit up. So the people that burnt shit up weren't on the people that burnt the fucking dumpster aren't on some Rambo shit. They're on some peaceful protester shit, right? But the fucking guy that extinguishes the fire and is like, I want no more fire is on some Rambo shit.
You're making a hero out of a clown to put out.
I'm not making a hero out of him.
You literally are unrelentingly making a hero out of a child, a fool, a criminal.
So the person that starts the fire is less of a Rambo than the person that extinguishes the fire. I'm just asking.
Brought down a fucking 747 that had 3 engines out, like he's a fucking firefighter running into buildings and dragging
right. I'm like, it's a 17-year-old boy walking around with a rifle, like for real. We can answer the question. Do you think he would have went over there to extinguish that fire if he didn't have that rifle?
Probably not, but that's our fucking right to have fucking guns, man. It really is.
He was out there, okay, he's seen some action, he went to it. You understand what I'm saying?
And he used a fire extinguisher, not a rifle. So wait, this is my point. My point is, you're saying he was on some Rambo shit by extinguishing a fire, and the people that set the fire weren't on some Rambo shit.
When I say Rambo shit, that's exaggerated. But it was just the whole intimidation of the rifle strapped on his body. And he in situations like the police is out.
He was acting like a cop. Well, cops don't do shit, yo. So he had. So you're because he vigilante did. because he was a vigilante, firefighter, cop.
An excellent comment.
I ain't
from
never.
me, but
Last I
have
heard,
to point out,
vigilantes illegal.
he's not
They
the only
come after.
person
They
who
come
put out
after
that
them too.
dumpster fire. He's not the only one who put out that fire, but he's the only one that got chased.
What about the vigilante that was in costume in Washington State?
Why do you
ever
think
see
they
that
didn't
guy?
chase all the other people who helped put out the fire? If the
Is he
fire was
is he
such
is
a problem?
he Rambo shit too? Like the vigilante
You
from
think
Washington
maybe running
State
around with the rifle might have
in
been one of the
Seattle?
ones being run
We
down?
can talk about that at another time. I'm talking about dude right here, Kyle Rittenhouse. All right. It was the whole intimidation with the rifle around him and putting himself in the situations that the police was out there to handle. The dumpster fires was for them police to handle, not him. Okay, I understand if he was there assigned to protect the business of his family, that's understandable. If he's there on the property with he wasn't even supervised. We read the law. And all I'm saying is, if we're gonna keep it, if we're gonna keep it real, let's keep it real. Because somebody in the chat said, "What would that? How would it ended up with if it happened to a person of color?" All this would be ignored. What we talking about is just be straight down the hatch for that person. But we giving them all this extra. Okay, well, is he guilty for being underage by handling a rifle, or is he guilty for murder? It wouldn't have been all that for a minority. It wouldn't have been all that for them.
The color thing is regardless. That doesn't even. It's not even relevant. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I think it's very relevant because
What would have happened if the
argument.
dude was a black dude
I
at a
say
Black Lives Matter protest,
I say
killing
it's very
people?
relevant because of the arguments that we having. We wouldn't be having these many arguments if it was a black dude. Like all these arguments wouldn't have been raised. It was just we
Bro,
knew.
people like to make everything about race. This is the thing, yo. I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about human rights, right? I watched the videos. I don't think a lot of the commenters have actually watched every video from that. I've watched them, the
Dumpsters
BG
aren't
on the scene,
humans
the
and they don't
BG on the
have
scene
rights.
videos, and the other videos from different angles that shows the whole thing unravel. I watched the shit. I immersed myself in it when it happened. I wanted to see it.
Dumpsters don't have human rights.
So hey, here's a question, right? Right?
Oh, 1990 Chevy Lumina APV said,
Hey,
"Oh,
hey,
I'm gonna hit the link. I'm gonna put the link. We can talk about it, bro. If that's what you think I am, always with the race card, we can talk about it. I can tell you why. But come on up.
no, not me. I'm talking about the people in the comments or people in general. People in general love to make it about race because the news makes it. You know what pisses me off the most? Whenever the cops are under scrutiny, the news always makes it about race. And it's not about race. Cops are fucking assholes, right? And then there's some fucking asshole cops that are racist, right? They're all assholes and some maybe 30-40% of them are fucking racist, right? Like
Uh,
or maybe 60, maybe 60. But the story is fucking they're assholes and they hate people in general. They want to fucking dominate you for money because it's guaranteed. And
I
that's
hear
it.
60. Do I hear 80?
Hmm?
I hear
I would
60.
say
Do I hear 80? Do we got 80? 80%. 80%
Yeah,
of
let's go up to
population.
80. Let's
80
go up to
going once.
80.
80 going once. 80
Yo,
going
it could
twice.
be yo, look,
80%.
it could be
80%
95, 95, 95, 95, 95.
the majority of this police state is racist. Okay, because it's still built with old lawmakers, old school murderers, rapists, and killers. So when you say to me about the police department, they're not all racist. I don't believe that. I believe it's the majority. The majority of them is racist, bro.
Black people go through it more than white people do in a sense of the police community. But their target is young people in general. Young people in general, bro. Because they don't know their rights. That's why our subscribers are mostly like between 50 and 65 and shit because they know their rights. Fucking they don't fucking pull those guys over. They pull young people over. No matter what the fuck you are. They know that you're young, dumb, fool will come. All you care about is titties and money and all this shit, right? and they know you're probably partying, you're having a good time. They were young once too. They know that they were partying, and you know what I'm saying. So they're gonna get you, and that's it. That's what I see mostly. Just young people getting targeted because they don't know shit.
All right. Let's move on a little more to this video.
Now, once the police pass by and the protesters are pushed down south of 60th, I believe the evidence will show that the car source that the defendant is stationed at is no longer in danger. There's no one there who's attempting to damage the property. There's no one there who's going to do anything to harm anyone there. The situation has moved on. Does the defendant stay there? Does he decide that he's done what he set out to do and it's time to go home? No. The evidence will show that the defendant, another individual in the group by the name of Ryan Balch, who you will hear from, decide to venture out into the crowd. They cross the police line at 60th and Cherry, and they walk amongst this group of hostile protesters. At some point, they both wind up at a gas station on the southeast corner of 60th and Sheridan called Ultimate Gas. And you'll see some video of the scene there. It is a scene, again, of groups of people that are clashing with one another verbally. There's some shoving going on. And in the midst of this is Joseph Rosenbaum. And you will hear some testimony about Mr. Rosenbaum and his activities that night. Mr. Rosenbaum had been discharged from the hospital that very day and had come back to his home of Kenosha, had met up with his girlfriend, Carrie Ann Swart. He couldn't stay with her, so he left her and came downtown and got caught up in the midst of these protests. You will see him on videos. You will see photographs of him as he's walking around. He is carrying a plastic bag. Part of that plastic bag is clear and see-through. It has a string, white string, drawstring to it. It is the type of bag, I believe the evidence will show, that you get at the hospital when you're asked to put all of your personal possessions in a bag. Your shoes, your watch, your phone, your jewelry, etc. That's the type of bag it is. And I believe the evidence will show that he was carrying it around most of that evening. And at various points, the evidence will show that Mr. Rosenbaum is agitated. He is getting in people's faces. He is using obscenities. He is essentially daring.
I just want to pause it right there and say, like, this whole argument about him shooting these individuals, it don't even matter to me, and it stopped mattering to me when Gray gave up the information about him not being able to carry a weapon at that age.
He's trying to show intent because murder requires intent. It requires premeditation.
I understand, but right there, when you the information that you gave it's enough for me right there.
I hear you.
Because if he wasn't able to use it or have it in his possession, none of that would have happened.
Hey, I want to point out, Shitting Duck Nipples said that propaganda was legalized in 2012, and nobody really knows about it. I'm going to read exactly what he said real quick. Propaganda has been legal since 2012. People don't realize this, hence why everyone is being indoctrinated on both sides since that year. I told him I'm going to look into that and see if it's true, but if it is,
I glimpsed over something like that a couple of years ago.
You live in America. Propaganda has always been legalized. He's describing a policy change,
political
foreign actors,
political propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about the CIA's policies overseas. It's got nothing to do with the United States.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that.
I mean, it does have to do with the United States because the CIA is from the United States, but it's not like a domestic policy.
Right. Okay. Right on.
People to respond. In fact, at Ultimate Gas, I believe the evidence will show that he actually gets right up in the face of armed people who are similarly armed as the defendant, who have similar AR-15 type rifles on. And he is literally confronting them in their faces. None of those folks shoot him. They push him away. He's 5'3", by the way, 150 pounds. They push him away. No one appears to take him as a serious danger. The defendant is at the Ultimate gas station during part of this, so is Ryan Balch. I believe Mr. Balch will testify that there was an understanding that when we cross south of 60th, we stay together. We try not to intervene in anything. But if we get separated, head back to 59th Street, where our original group is. Mr. Balch does. The defendant attempts to. He comes up to the police line. They won't let him pass. He says, "I work at that business," and points to 59th Street. And again, they won't let him directly through the line. Now, I believe the evidence will show that he could have easily gone a block in either direction if he really wanted to go back, but he turns away from the police line, returns to the Ultimate gas station. And a few minutes later, we see him on the video of a man by the name of Corey Elijah, who will testify very shortly here in this trial. Mr. Corey Elijah was one of these people out on the streets who was Facebook live streaming the events of that night. And he catches the defendant passing right in front of him with a fire extinguisher. The gun still slung around his body, strapped to his body. And Corey Elijah will testify, this caught his attention. Where's he going with this fire extinguisher? And so Corey Elijah decides to follow with his video, recording the entire way. And we will show you that video. You will see that as Corey Elijah leaves the Ultimate gas station at 60th and Sheridan and heads south, he passes by the defendant, who by this point is walking, holding a fire extinguisher in his hand, all by himself. Corey Elijah, I don't think, registers that that's the person I originally saw, and he keeps on passing him, and as he continues, he passes by Joseph Rosenbaum, who at this point has taken his shirt off. He's got shorts on, and he's taken his shirt and kind of wrapped it around his head. And Mr. Rosenbaum is still carrying that plastic hospital bag and walking down Sheridan towards the 63rd Street car source.
Eric Wiley says the manner of self-defense is irrelevant to the legalities of his possession of a firearm in the state of Wisconsin. They're charging the person who provided the gun separately. Yeah, I'm with that too, Eric. But Wolfie's argument is that is it constitutional? Great, well, I ain't hear you respond to that. Wolfie's argument was, is that constitutional for him to not be able to defend himself because there's a law that says he's not able to handle that? How do you feel about that?
The courts have consistently found that there can be, time, place, and manner restrictions on any of the, on the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, pretty much any of your rights. There are places where it's appropriate. There are people who are allowed to have, certain rights and people who aren't. Prisoners can't vote, for instance. Prisoners also can't, keep and bear arms. If you are a former felon in most states, you can't keep and bear arms. Children can't keep and bear arms with no restriction, and that's all considered constitutionally allowed limitations on citizens' rights. So, yes, it would be constitutionally allowed to prevent a child from possessing a weapon under whatever circumstances in Wisconsin.
But you mentioned time, place, and manner. So let's just say if it's kind of hard to make an example because he was in possession of a gun that he shouldn't have had. And
so those limitations would even be removed under certain circumstances that we went through at the top. When I first came in here, that, if he was hunting with his parents or if he was at a gun range with an instructor, like those would all be good reasons for him to actually have a weapon. So he would be entitled to those rights, even as a minor, a child, basically.
And I would think the time, place, and manner wouldn't go very well in his favor that night.
No, he doesn't have any reason to have that weapon at all.
All right. Can I ask a quick question here? I assume that's a yes. I'm just asking, just the whole audience and everybody here talking. Could we all agree that being able to possess that weapon or not being able to possess that weapon is a totally different subject than murder versus self-defense?
Yeah, dude, we definitely
that's
agree
what
with
we
that.
were saying. We was
Because everybody's getting wrapped up in it. Everybody's getting wrapped up in it. Like, that doesn't have anything to do. Like, this is things that people are saying about this case that people need to understand. They totally like need to clarify that this is two different subjects.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say one thing, that deciding that you're going to have a firearm despite its illegality is speaking to a certain state of mind, right? Like, that to me would imply a certain recklessness that would be included as one of the elements, to part of the confluence of evidence, part of
I,
the greater
I,
body of evidence that you're bringing together to make this case. That's just one facet of it. It doesn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, but it is one aspect of proof that will be brought to bear. And I think rightfully so.
And I got you, but is murder and negligence the same thing?
No.
That's what I'm trying to talk about. We're talking about legal.
Negligence are in fact, I believe, I mean, unless I can think of an exception or someone can point one out, mutually exclusive. Like, murder negligence speaks to, a lack of intent entirely.
Negligence could lead to manslaughter.
Yes, but this wasn't.
But negligence can't lead to murder. This is the whole thing I'm trying to say. Negligence can lead to manslaughter, whether it's vehicular manslaughter.
How is this negligence?
Because he wasn't allowed to have the gun.
That's intent.
Right. So the intent.
So he intentionally. It's not like someone accidentally slipped.
No, it's not intent. It's not intent. Intent is murder. Like, he came there intending to kill.
Let me just say something.
No, he was being negligent because he didn't have his license.
So it's like, this is how I look at it, right? He was a minor who wasn't supposed to have a rifle in the state of Wisconsin. Now,
I'm just being real. Just being real.
The situation was on a property. I'm just making an example. On that property, on a property of a farm or something, and these protesters made it to that area, and he did what he did, I think he would have been within his rights to do that because it was still on the property. But Gray mentioned time, place, and man. He knew where he was at. They knew it could. They knew what could have happened because they came armed. Okay, he's underage, and he's there for the intent that if it
he knew that he was negligent.
Huh?
He knew that he was negligent. Intent means I came here to murder, and you have to actually prove he came there to murder.
They came with guns?
They came with guns, okay? That's negligence because he wasn't allowed to have a gun. Because he crossed state lines? That's negligence because he knew he wasn't supposed to cross state lines with a fucking gun, and he wasn't supposed to have a gun.
That's not what negligence means.
It wasn't intent to murder.
Yes, it is. You have to intentionally move from one place to another, bro.
This is being stretched. This is not how the legal system is worded. That's not how a legal system is worded. Yeah, you're stretching it.
Okay, prove otherwise. Show me the statute.
You're gonna fucking see through this trial, however many weeks it takes.
It's been argued that moving from across state lines is negligence. Please,
they overcharged him.
There's literally no reason for anyone to believe that.
They overcharged the kid. If they would have charged him with manslaughter, this would be an open and shut, bang bang case. But they wanted to fucking try to prove a point. That's just like they always try to do, and they're always gonna lose. They lost it with the fucking Trayvon Martin case and George Zimmerman and shit. They lost it with it. It's because they try to overcharge. They could have got all these motherfuckers, Casey Anthony with manslaughter cases, George Zimmerman, fucking this guy. Dude, they fucking overcharge and they mess it up all the time. I thought there might be a chance that I didn't think there was. Nah, I'm not even gonna talk about that. But fucking those three cases right there, prime examples, overcharging, right? And everybody's all upset afterwards. Don't blame anybody but the fucking people in government that suck at how to fucking charge people. Like, they do it on purpose. They're either doing it on purpose, overcharging so they know it's going to get beat in court, or they're just dumb. You know what I'm saying? You pick.
Shout outs to Level Wise to see. She said neglect, not intent. She's agreeing with you, Wuffy. He didn't intend to kill anybody. Can neglect neglectfully pulled the trigger. So I'm. This is why I think. This is what I think. I think if that he
Nah,
get.
that is a sarcastic comment, but I like it. I like it.
I think that if he was to be charged with murder, right? That they have to build. This is my opinion. They have to build a stronger argument on the intent on why they was there. And I've seen clips and stuff on documentaries of them going back and forth with the protesters. Okay, that don't seem like that they was for what was going on, right? And they come from. They were supposed to be at a specific property, but they went and started walking around. He ended up from point A to point B. People got killed. So if he didn't put himself in that position, nobody wouldn't have got killed.
Right.
Nobody wouldn't have gotten killed.
Right. If I didn't go record a cop at the traffic stop, he wouldn't have shot me. If we weren't at Canada Dry, the cops wouldn't have shown up that day and maybe potentially shot us.
He put himself. Hold on. Us going to Canada Dry.
You understand what I'm saying? Well, we weren't at Canada Dry. We were at FedEx.
No, us going to Canada Dry wasn't putting ourselves in a harmful situation where we knew that there was protesting going on and police reacting to that protest.
No. What if they called the cops on us? They called the cops on us. We could have got shot. We don't know what the fuck they were going to think.
They called the cops on us, but we didn't go into the situation knowing that there was a violent situation going on or a possible violent situation going down. We went there to record.
That's true. That's true.
That you equate that to what happened that night when Kyle Rittenhouse had that situation. He knew what he was getting into. He knew that was a protest. He knew that was after the whole George.
No, what I'm equating it to is we knew that they would potentially call the cops on us.
We ain't had the guns. He had.
No, what I'm saying is we knew that they would potentially call the cops on us. We were putting ourselves in harm's way. We always do that shit, yo. What we do.
We do, but we didn't have no firearms. We had cameras.
Yeah, the analogy falls apart because you didn't start opening fire on the police when you felt threatened by them. Somehow you managed to keep it together.
What I'm saying is, dude, I mean, like this dude was just out there thinking, "Hey, we're protecting the community and shit, right?" And many of us say,
the "Community,
we're out there to do it."
Why did he step away from the buildings that he was supposed to be protecting and go into the crowd?
Exactly.
Because he extinguished that fire. That's where it started, dude. That's the videos. You have to see them.
That wasn't his job.
He went there to protect
Yo, it's not my friend Jamie's job to go out and take her ass out and feed the fucking homeless all the time. She does it because
if you take what you said at face value. Once more, as Ace said, he's not the only person who put out the dumpster fire.
I'm just saying. It's not people volunteer.
Hold on, take a breath, buddy. Hold on, take a breath. He's not the only person who put out that fire. So even if he wasn't there, that fire would have gone out. That's number one. Number two, he wasn't the only person who put out that fire, but he was the only person who was chased down, meaning that he didn't chase him down because he put out the fire. So that's number two.
It chases them directly afterwards. It's on video.
Nobody else who was in that situation started killing people.
He had a fucking gun and he was being chased by some fucking guy and he defended himself. It's fucking America.
Taco Cat. What up, bro?
Dude, we live in a country where we can defend ourselves, bro. We're not in a bitch ass country where we're all fucking sensitive. Like, get that shit out of your fucking head. That fucking mindset, that progressive mindset.
But like, I'm definitely not that guy. Number one. Number two, this is your solution. We'll just
walk
around with guns and solve problems. I'm down. Let's do that. Just like Seattle.
Yo, give everybody their second fucking amendment back, yo.
Fucking AR-15, he'd have gotten shot right through the fucking
all we need is detectives and our second amendment back.
Hold on. That doesn't work in Seattle because they have militia in Seattle. They have armed dudes with Kalashnikovs. They'll put you down. They patrol the streets. If that's what you want, if you want socialists patrolling the streets at these BLM protests, you can have it. You can have that.
Well, you're calling people that want to arm themselves socialists?
No, I'm saying that those are the people that he's going out to start fights with. And if you want the socialists to start arming themselves, exactly like Seattle, where they have to deal with armed Nazis and armed cops who just take off the
No,
uniform, pick up a gun, and go
socialists.
stand on a roof.
That's Seattle shit, I guess.
That's
I'm talking about Americans
the
with
rest of the
guns.
country, bro. That's the rest of the country if this goes this way. If you
Well,
don't,
you might be right in a
you don't
sense
start
because they
policing
fucking
criminals.
made everybody have a
Don't start
vagina.
policing criminals. The people will police the criminals.
You might be right in a sense because there's a lot of
People will pick
vaginas
up
out there.
rifles. Yes, I'm agreeing with exactly what you're saying. I'm saying that beyond what your point is, beyond the fact that people can defend themselves, people will defend themselves. The reason why we don't have retributive justice is because we have institutional justice. And when that fails the people will make a correction.
Well, defense is good, right? But as long as you're not abusing your Second Amendment, using it for a crime, you know what I'm saying? You'll lose your Second Amendment. You'll be stuck in a world without a gun, or you'll get a fucking illegal gun, right? But at least everybody else that doesn't abuse their Second Amendment will still have their guns. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. It'll work. It's like the 1800s. Like we just go back in reverse and do that again.
All right, let's move on to the video, y'all. We can get back at it in a few minutes.
The defendant is behind him at some distance. As they get down to the 6200 into the 6300 block of Sheridan,
Shout outs
Road,
Ian
that
Undercover.
block on the west side of Sheridan has a house right at the corner of 62nd and Sheridan. And then on the south end of that block, the south half, is the car source lot. You will hear testimony from someone from the FBI who was up in a plane that night taking video. And we will show you the video. It is an infrared video, which means it picks up heat. This is at nighttime, so regular cameras, especially from an airplane, aren't going to be able to see everything. So the infrared helps us to see in the dark. The video picks up Mr. Rosenbaum. It is quite clear to see him because he is a white blob. Infrared picks up heat. He doesn't have his shirt on. So the cloth of a shirt would help conceal some of that heat, but when you don't have your shirt on, that heat radiates, and the infrared picks it up more clearly. So he's very easy to see in the video as a white dot. You see him running towards the 63rd car source. And behind him, running in the same direction, following him, is the defendant. As they get to the 63rd Street car source, there are some cars on the north side of that lot. Mr. Rosenbaum peels off behind those cars, and the defendant stops on the other side of those cars and turns towards Mr. Rosenbaum. Now, obviously, in an infrared video from a plane overhead, we don't know exactly what was going on at that very moment. We don't know what words were said. But what's clear is whatever that confrontation that was initiated by the defendant started, it caused Mr. Rosenbaum to come around the cars and start running after the defendant. The defendant drops the fire extinguisher right there and runs, carrying his AR-15. At some point during that foot pursuit, the defendant turns around, points the gun at Mr. Rosenbaum, who puts his hands up in the air. Now remember, he's got no shirt on. He's got his hands up in the air, almost like, what are you going to do? The defendant stops, pointing at Mr. Rosenbaum, continues to run. And right around this time, there is a gunshot from someone else, who we have identified by the name of Joshua Zeminski. This is an individual who's walking on the sidewalk, probably 30 feet away from where the defendant and Mr. Rosenbaum are running. Mr. Zeminski, for reasons only he can explain, decided to take his handgun and fire it one time in the air. As I said, this is in a different direction, and many feet away from where the defendant was. Mr. Rosenbaum continues to pursue the defendant, and we will have Detective Martin Howard testify that he's timed the gap between Mr. Zeminski's shot and the eventual gunshots is about 2.5 or 2.6 seconds. Mr. Rosenbaum closes on the defendant. The defendant turns and fires 4 shots at Mr. Rosenbaum. You will hear the testimony from the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner, Dr. Douglas Kelly, that Mr. Rosenbaum suffered 5 wounds total from 4 bullets. Dr. Kelly will testify that the first 2 wounds that were inflicted upon Mr. Rosenbaum were to his lower extremities. We're not sure which order they were in, but one was to his right pelvis, fracturing his pelvis, and one was to his left lower thigh. Dr. Kelly will testify that these wounds caused Mr. Rosenbaum to start falling face forward. And you will see video of his body where it is found. He lands on his face down on the ground. As he is falling, the defendant fires 2 more shots. One of them hits the defendant in the back, Mr. Rosenbaum in the back. And that is the shot that kills Mr. Rosenbaum, according to Dr. Kelly. You will hear testimony from someone by the name of Richie McGinnis. Richie McGinnis is a reporter who came to Kenosha to cover the events of that night. And at some point, shortly before these shootings, he encounters the defendant at 59th Street and interviews him. He talks to the defendant.
Shout out TJ.
And then follows the defendant down Sheridan Road and is right behind the defendant as these shootings are occurring. In fact, he is in the car source lot. He is behind Mr. Rosenbaum when Mr. Rosenbaum is shot. And Mr. McGinnis will testify that one of those rounds came close to him, which is the basis for the count that we've alleged that Mr. McGinnis was recklessly harmed or placed in danger by the defendant. Mr. McGinnis will testify that when he saw Joseph Rosenbaum shot and fall to the ground, he immediately ran up and attempted to treat Mr. Rosenbaum. He took off his shirt. He used it to try and stem some bleeding. He rolled Mr. Rosenbaum over onto his back, and he's attempting to administer first aid. Many other people respond at that very moment to that location and attempt to help Mr. Rosenbaum. They eventually lift him up. They carry him across the street to Frederick South, formerly known as Kenosha Memorial Hospital, KMH, which happens to be right across the street. These folks load him into a hospital SUV that's there in the back of it, and it races off towards the emergency room to try and save Mr. Rosenbaum's life. That's what Mr. McGinnis does. The defendant, after shooting Mr. Rosenbaum, gets on his phone, calls Dominic Black and says, "I just shot somebody," and starts running away.
Grace said this is the equivalent of saying it's okay to punch someone because they startled you by speaking loudly. I don't know, Gray. I gotta disagree with that. Like, I got a gun on me and somebody else is reaching for the gun. I'm not gonna let them take that gun and shoot me. Like, there's no reason for me to have the
Why
gun.
do you think they're going to shoot you when they take your illegal firearm from you?
What do you mean? Because if it goes down, that's what I'm out there for. I'm out there to shoot them if it comes down to it.
How do you know they're not going to shoot you?
I'm already out there with the gun. Okay, I mean, like where I'm from, you don't just come out with no gun and just wave it around your neck and let it dangle in front of your torso just to show it off. You're going to use it. So I'm already there. That's why I say the intent.
If you're scared of me having a gun, why can't I be scared of you having that gun?
That's why I speak about the intent. The intent needs to be argued.
Because he's a child running around with an automatic rifle.
That's a different subject. We already agreed on that.
What?
That's a different subject than murder. We already agreed on that.
That has nothing to do with what I just
said. They don't know if he's a child. What does it say? I'm 17 on my forehead? I'm 17. Is that what it says on his forehead?
Yes. It says that on your face.
He has a t-shirt saying I'm... Does he have a t-shirt saying I'm 17, not 18?
You can't tell a teenager from an adult, really?
You can't tell. I can't tell a 17-year-old from an 18-year-old a lot of times.
I think if someone's 17 or 18 or 19, I'm going to be like, "Hey, kid, you shouldn't be running around with a gun."
So you're going to run to a guy with a fucking AK-47 strapped to him. I'm going to say,
"Hey, kid, you shouldn't be running around with a gun. What you doing with that gun here, kid?"
Hold on, we're going to have to get back to the video, but just to finish what I was saying about Gray's comment, I don't think I think that's a little different. He's coming to reach for the gun. I'm not going to let him get that gun, and I'm already out there because I know it's a heated situation, so I'm out there to do what needs to be done if it happens. It's not that I don't think, yeah, I'm pretty sure if people were cursing at him and speaking loudly, I think he had enough sense to walk away and keep it moving. I don't think he would have shot off if that would have happened, but it was a little more different with somebody reaching for the gun. I mean, you got to respect this gangster on that.
He actually had very well gun control and only used his gun when he needed to. He didn't spray fire a whole bunch of people on accident because he didn't know what he was doing because he was 17. The kid only defended himself from the people who were threatening him. I mean, it was.
I think it was a little too many people that he shot. I'll say that.
In case you didn't realize.
I think it would have only been the first guy. It would have only been the one guy. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what happened with the first guy.
Someone skateboard dude?
No, the first guy, he's a different guy. He's a close-shaven kid. He was like talking about he's been to jail and shit. He'll go back and stuff. And after the dumpster fire, that was the first kid. And then they were like, "Where's the dude?" And then in the street that you were watching, that's the second two people that got shot.
You can't blame him for the one that pulled out on him. The one that pulled the gun out. You can't blame him for that. He was quick on the draw. I mean, I can't blame
in the street where he falls to the ground. You can't blame him for any of that. I don't know what happened with the first kid though.
I don't blame him for nothing. Like I told you, my point right there. If you out there with the gun and it happens, then you got to do what you got to do. My shit is the intent. I don't think y'all on the intent part and the group that he was with. I think that needs to be focused on. Like, what were they really there for? Like, you can't just be coming out from another town from out, hey, we're protecting
look at it like this. Look at it like this. Did any of those other people go out there and shoot some people?
No, he was the only one.
All right, so you can venture out, like, what was their intent? Well, nobody else fucking shot nobody, but we could see that he got fucking chased and fell to the ground and stumbled. He had to defend himself. He was on his back. They were still trying to come after him with a skateboard to smash his head in and all this other shit. You know what I'm saying? And he's just trying to defend himself with a gun.
Talking about, I saw two people trying to get the rifle away from him and him scramble back and start firing into them.
All right, try to take a fucking rifle away from somebody and see what happens to you.
Well, if it's me, I'm probably going to get the fucking rifle.
Okay, Rambo. But what I'm saying is, fucking, what do you expect the person with the gun to do?
I'm definitely not going to cross the midline of the weapon.
If somebody tries to take your weapon away from you, what are you going to do if somebody tries to take your weapon away from you? What are you going to do?
Shit out of them.
What would you do if somebody takes the? Are you going to punch the shit out of them and not use the weapon? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like, why in that situation? Why wouldn't you just fall on him?
I mean, the situation he was in. I don't see
one man versus a whole army of fucking numbers.
He's not fighting. What are you talking about? There's two people.
Dude, he's on his back. Everybody's trying to attack him.
He's trying to get the rifle off of him because he doesn't have any business carrying a rifle, bro.
Do you think the dude was in fear for his life?
Business carrying a rifle.
All right. Do you think the kid was in fear for his life? Do you think he was in fear for his life?
No.
Okay, that's weird, but whatever.
No, that's the reasonableness standard. That's literally what this attorney is explaining to the jury. That there's a standard in law that you need to have a reasonable expectation that you're about to lose your life. And that doesn't mean that you assume the person's like a kung fu master or can transform into the Hulk and smash you to death. You assume that only happens to the arms.
Dude, they get a live rifle from him. What do you think he thinks they're going to do with that live rifle? They're going to fucking kill him.
You keep talking about your feelings, you can talk about the law, and you can talk about the facts. I'm not interested in your feelings.
It just sounds weird. It just sounds like some agenda type of shit, but it's all good.
Again, you're talking agendas is more about your feelings.
No, it just sounds like I'm just trying to be reasonable, man. I'm just trying to be reasonable.
To the jury, and
about the fact that he was hitting the head with a skateboard. How you?
I didn't see anybody hit anybody in the head with a skateboard.
No.
Maybe that's not in that clip, or it's not that angle, or maybe it happened before or after.
We clearly seen a guy jump over his head with a skateboard, right? Didn't we see that?
Yeah, and he fucking tried to hit him with it. He dropped it. He went to go pick it up and run away because he was like,
You
"Damn,
think
I just hit some guy with a gun." That's in
you
his.
said that you don't think he was in fear of his life. I think differently. I mean, just because he had the gun doesn't mean he wasn't scared. Number one, I'm
I
pretty
saw
sure
some
he
people
felt as
trying to
though
get a
he
gun
needed
away
to be
from him, and him
responsible. I
start
feel as though
scrambling
Yo,
like
did
he's
the
going to start
skateboard kid?
killing
The
people.
skateboard kid got away, didn't he?
hold on, I gotta finish my statement. I feel as though that he was scared and he felt as though he needed to be responsible as well. But with the barrage of what was going on, Grace says that there wasn't a lot going on. It was just two people. Well, he was already out there in a heated situation. Just the surroundings, period, was a dangerous environment. So I think he was scared. And
I think the kid with the skateboard was scared. Like, are you seriously saying that a skateboard is as threatening a weapon
Wait,
as a
wait,
rifle?
wait, 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 wait. When I'm scared, when I'm scared, I run away.
yeah, I'm not running towards no dude with no rifle on him.
He was
I'm
so scared that he was brave, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, bro.
He
Like,
was so scared that he was brave enough to go in there and try to
you're
attack him with his
standing next to
skateboard.
somebody and you're
That's
gonna
how
run
scared he
faster
was.
than a bullet. You're just
He
gonna
was so
like run
scared he
straight.
turned into fucking
You're
Batman.
the Flash now. You're just gonna like turn around and just like blaze away.
Dude, I'm fucking gone. I hear gunshots. I'm fucking gone. It's every man for themselves. You gotta
Yeah,
run,
but if you're
bro.
standing like behind the dude when the shit break goes fucking sideways, yeah, I don't know.
What? I don't even get it, yo. Like, dude, you want to unless you have to protect somebody that you're with, and you have to hold their hand and try to fucking get them through it and run away with them. Like that's the. But I'm running away.
I don't even know what you're saying anymore.
Oh, somebody starts shooting and shit. I'm gonna be some fucking MacGyver and shit. I'm just be some dude that just does a fucking ninja roll, comes in and grabs him by the ankle, grabs his fucking gun out of his hand and be Chuck Norris or some shit. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how scared I have to be? I don't know. I was just asking because the dude should have just. Everybody, don't run towards a guy with a fucking rifle and then he's on his back, right? When he's on his back, yo, just get out of there, bro. Like, you have to understand what self defense is, man. Like, that's real shit in legal terms.
dude right
Dude's
here.
on his back. He's on his back. And they're going to get into it in the trial. I'm telling you, it's going to get days deeper and it's going to get deep.
Who that first dude? Did that first dude get hit?
Did the dude shoot the two dudes in the street while he wasn't on his back? Ask me that. Tell me that. Tell me the conclusion of that. He was on his back and they were trying to come at him.
Man, that's the skateboard dude right there. Greg.
Oh, yeah.
Skateboard
Yep.
dude right there.
Yep.
You said, do we think he was scared? I don't think we look.
It looks. Yep. Boom. That one dude kicks him. The other dude with the skateboard comes over. Boom. Smacks him in the head with the shit. Drops the skateboard, picks it up.
Skateboard dude come all the way from the left.
Self-defense, man. But I don't know what happened with the first kid because that was behind a car and there's no actual real video of it. But he was being chased there.
I don't blame him for that. He was out there with the gun. Me, I know what I'm getting into. It's a high volatile situation. Police out there, look, he's still popping off. Damn. Police out there. I got the gun, so I'm not out there frauding or faking it. I ain't gonna let nobody take it from me. But what I'm saying is the whole intent. Was he out there with some foul shit?
There's another angle to this. Because that angle shows the second guy that got his arm blown off. It looks like from that angle that he was like trying to jump away backwards, but from the other angle, it shows him trying to reach in again to try to grab the gun. It was weird. I watched all the different angles of this shit.
I mean, I get what you're both saying, that like you feel that you should be able to defend yourself in that situation, but it doesn't matter how you feel. What matters is how the law works.
I'm sorry.
The law says there has to be a standard where you're being met with a threat that can take your life.
They were like, let's get us! Let's get his fucking ass! It's all on video.
Words can't actually kill you. In case you haven't heard that one.
Okay, so he fell on his back, and then people were jumping all
No matter
over him
how
like we just
scary
watched.
their words are, he wouldn't have died to them.
Well, listen, if that's the law, that's the law. What I'm saying is, I'm a convicted felon. So if I was out there with a gun, if somebody was reaching for it, I was going to pop a motherfucker. So I feel
You wouldn't be out there with the gun looking for trouble, would you?
well, that's true. But I'm saying, looking at him from my experience, I'm sorry, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. I don't see, he already put himself out there in the situation. So from my standpoint, that's why I think he should be found guilty.
I mean, if you're thinking like a criminal, then you're going to start acting like a
Whoa,
criminal.
whoa, whoa!
You
What's
wouldn't be in that
criminal? Well,
situation. You're
I
only
mean,
gonna you wouldn't be running out into the street to start like popping off at people. No one would probably be trying to take your rifle because of that.
But you have to prove that he went out into the streets to do that.
That's literally what this guy has been talking about.
No, he just went there to hold a gun in front of a fucking place.
Right there. You got to prove that that's what his intent was.
You got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to prove. You have to have your burden of proof.
And also, who the fuck he was with too? All the other armed dudes. So I think they shouldn't be left out as well.
They're on a political purpose, so to sit there and do their 2A and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and everybody gets that. I would assume, right? But fucking, that doesn't make them criminals. Like I said, nobody else popped out off at anybody. Nobody else was chased either. Nobody else was fucking chased and attacked but this kid. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, when you try to say, oh, what's up with the group though and shit. None of them fucking did anything. They were just sat there peacefully. They were peacefully protesting their Second Amendment. I'm going to protect this place. Just back off. Don't fuck with these businesses. That's fine. You can do that too. That's a protest. You know, it is what it is. You're allowed to do it. And you can't just be like, oh, 1A and not 2A or anything else, you know? And I mean, shit. I mean, it is what it is. You know, there's 1A protesters, there's 2A people that are like, we're going to protect. It's all there for a reason, you know?
It's Creole.
It's all there for a reason. The 1A, some people say the 2A is there to protect the 1A, and other people say the could say the 2A is there to protect from fucking 1A people that are taking it too far. Like, we don't want them to fuck up our business and shit. Like, that's all we ask. Like, just back off. You know, but they protect each other. It's all the Constitution, man. It's the Bill of Rights. I mean, it is what it is. It's a big case, right? And they're gonna dive deep into this. Like, this was just day 2. Actually, day 1, if you really want to think about it. Yesterday was day 2, but it's actually day 1 because it got into testimony and shit. But wait until they dive deeper into this. You're going to see, people are going to learn. Hopefully people will learn a lot more, or maybe just people are just going to hate, because people just like to hate. They won't pick one side or the other or whatever. Bullshit.
All right, let's move on to more of the video.
Now, one of the things that you will see and hear in this case is that the defendant throughout this entire evening held himself out as an EMT, as a medic, that he's carrying a medical bag with him, strapped to his body. And yet, in this time of Mr. Rosenbaum there on the ground, injured, potentially dying, the defendant offers no aid, but instead runs. He runs up Sheridan Road. He encounters another member of their group from 59th Street, who you will hear testify, by the name of Jason Lakowski. Jason Lakowski is similarly armed. He's a former Marine. He had been with the defendant at 59th Street and had come down in response to the gunshots. Mr. Lakowski will testify that he met Mr. Rittenhouse as the defendant was fleeing the scene. And Mr. Rittenhouse said to him, I didn't shoot anybody, but I need help. And Mr. Lakowski says, head up towards the police. So the defendant starts running north on Sheridan. The crowd starts yelling, that guy, the defendant, just shot somebody. Because that's all the knowledge they have at that point. And it's true. So they begin to chase after him. They clearly believe he's an active shooter, and they try and stop him. And I've already described to you the events that follow. Mr. Huber the unknown individual, and Mr. Grosskreutz.
Can we pause
So,
right there?
when we talk in this trial about the night
Just a
of
second.
August
Can we
25th,
pause? I just want to draw a line under that. So everything that you just said about, skateboard guy and this guy's trying to run up and they're trying, that's all after he's already shot somebody.
Yeah, he already shot the one guy because the dude was chasing him after the dumpster fire.
Whoa.
No, that's true. That's
He's
true.
already shot somebody. He's already shot somebody.
That first, see, the main thing that we see is the footage on the street. But the first person that he shot was the mental ill guy who just came out of the institution. But he came towards him violently. I mean, listen, he came towards him while that man had a gun. Let me ask you real quick: what is your defense on if you're carrying a weapon and somebody is running up on you? What is your defense?
If somebody's just running at me,
Yeah, like the guy did, the first
You'll
guy.
get a fist fight and risk your gun coming off you and him getting a grab of it, and just think about the whole
if
situation.
somebody's just running at me like a monster out of a movie, then like I'm gonna threaten them with the gun at a safe distance, or I'm just gonna shoot them if there's not a safe distance. Obviously, like I've seen that movie.
You're just gonna carry a squirt gun with you, and just squirt him in the eye.
So basically, if they close in on you, you're going to eventually shoot, right?
Yes, if they're non-responsive and they're running like a zombie out of a movie, yes, obviously you shoot.
Non-responsive. What if they're like totally responsive? They're like, "Fuck you, motherfucker! I'm gonna kill you right now. I'm gonna fucking grab your gun."
Well, if they're just staying at a distance and they're just saying words, then no, you don't kill somebody when they're
if they're running at you, catching up to you, saying, "I'm gonna grab your gun and kill you with that shit, fucking bitch."
Wait, let's get to the point. You would agree that those people in the video all were closing in on him, and that's
no. You're completely no. He's already been in a firefight. He's done. He should be surrendering himself at that point.
Well. That's something I want to pick up about what the prosecutor said. The prosecutor.
No one cares. He doesn't have any business carrying a gun. He shot somebody.
The prosecutor said he didn't offer any help. Listen. The prosecutor said he didn't offer any help to the person he just shot. He just walked away down Sheridan, right? Well, what is he? He walked away from potentially having to shoot other people that maybe wanted to attack him too.
I don't know what fucking fantasy world you're living in.
Shout out Dragon now.
Anything works on my.
There's a mob of people that don't like what he did, right there in the streets.
Hold on, man. Hold on, real quick.
Yeah, people generally don't like it when you commit murder. That doesn't mean you get to start murdering everybody who thinks you're a murderer.
It's a very psychological thing that's happening here.
We don't know what happened with the first guy. Plain and simple, we just don't know what happened with the first guy, and for everybody to say that he was, to just assume that guy is just killing protesters and just attack them is a wrong thing to do. We have to figure out what happened with the first guy. It's not on tape. It's behind a car. You see him getting chased.
We literally don't have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened with the first guy because, like the second group of people, it doesn't matter. Like
the second group of people was wrong.
Disarming someone who just was an active shooter. That's literally what the prosecutor is saying.
It was a genius way of disarming somebody. I see the police, they all line up. They have like 15 people before they even kick in the door. Like there's, you know what I'm saying? They handle it much more safely. I think it was a pretty stupid fucking
really?
move.
You think the police with all of their like guns and financing and
yeah, we call them pussies because they fucking do that. Yeah,
overwhelming people when they don't expect to be attacked.
Do it. When they overwhelm people, they actually, when they overwhelm people, they actually take like 45 minutes before they actually kick the damn door in because they're such pussies, right? But like, at least that's not stupid enough as saying, there's a guy with an AK-47, let's fucking chase him and make him fall over and hit him with a skateboard.
All right. Hey, Gray, did you make it? did you make your point for my pause, or you want to say some more about that real quick?
No, I mean, I think that it's all a moot point. Like he's got no reasonable right to self-defense at that point. Like he's basically just shot somebody, and he's just like, well, I'm going to blend off, I'm going to blend
Citizen's
in the
arrest.
crowd and going to melt away from here and just go shoot more people instead of just going to find a cop or just doing literally.
Well, I mean,
anything
come
else.
on, you've
He
seen
just
the
goes
video.
and he continues to look for more people to shoot.
Those guys,
He just shot somebody.
those guys out there. After he did his first shooting, those guys weren't too inviting for him to turn
They weren't reasonable. They weren't the negotiator.
For him to turn
Yes.
I mean, I'm
okay,
not.
Look, I'm a crazy
Hey,
murderer.
please put down the weapon.
And then everybody on the street thinks that I'm a
Please
murderer.
put down the weapon, sir.
Murdering, and then I just start murdering them too. It's all
Yo,
justified.
I didn't see him saying, please put down the weapon, sir. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's please negotiate here. Look, it's gone too far. Please put down the weeping. We'll get the cops here.
To me. Hey, you're opposed to me having the gun after the
next.
No,
they were like, let's fuck him up.
Maniac. I'm just going to shoot. That's your thinking.
They didn't handle it the right way.
That's the logical conclusion of
they didn't handle it. They didn't handle it the right way. You're saying, like you're saying they handled it the right way. The fucking protesters, they were like by chasing him and then having he stumbles, he falls. They're all trying to hit him and shit.
I'm pretty sure
is that different than, hey, sir, please put down the gun. We don't want any more tragedy here, sir. We're just here peacefully protesting, sir. Please, let's just get this figured out.
Say that, and then he just walks away.
No, they didn't do that. They were like, "That's him."
How do you know?
It's on video.
On video. Show me video of that. How do you know?
Dude, it's on video, bro. It's BG
Show
on.
Me. Okay, great. Show it to.
Hold on, I gotta mute y'all, man. It gotta be one at a time. It sound crazy for real,
bro. If it's on video, just show me.
All right.
All I'm saying is that he's out there with the gun. It already went down with the first shooting. They weren't too inviting for him to turn himself in. They were, they seemed like they were inciting a little. So
it doesn't matter if you don't like the people who are around you after you shoot somebody. You don't get to turn around and start shooting all of them just because you don't like them.
You gotta fucking see.
Murder people just because you disagree with them. Like, what's happening in this conversation?
The clip.
I don't understand.
Everybody can find it.
I don't know where you guys are coming from.
How I feel about this is that like I said at the beginning, he had no business out there. Period. So on the fact that you showed us the law, I feel as though he's guilty right there. But the fact is, being as though that he was out there and he did what he did. I don't see anything wrong with him defending himself. But when it comes down to the law, they find him guilty for murder. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't affect me in any way. I'm not putting myself in any situation.
In that situation right there, they had no business. I don't think he had no business there. I think they should follow the intent of the militia, the group that he was with.
I definitely agree that it's stupid to go out there and inside that kind of environment with the gun and shit like that, but I believe it's his right. I'm not saying like, yeah, man, fuck yeah, go out there and do. I'm saying, dude, mind your own business to a certain extent. You don't want no parts of the fucking life. And then when the shit goes down, situations like this happen. But in this situation, I think that the kid was defending himself. I think it's unfortunate.
I think he was scared. I think he was scared. He had no business out there. He shouldn't have been out there. But I think he was scared as things started unfolding as fast as it did, from the first shooting to him on his back and people jumping over his head. And I don't fault him for doing what he did, but he shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah, he got caught up. I said that from the beginning. He got caught up in the whole fucking shit, and then shit happened from there. Like, he was fanboying out on protecting or doing whatever and being some kind of militia that protected looters from looters and shit.
I don't know what shit he's getting caught up in. No one else was
It started with the fire extinguisher at the dumpster.
being as though he shouldn't have been out there, who's responsible for him? He was with a militia, he was with a group, he was with the people he was supposed to be
There was other
defending the
people
property.
who were putting out the dumpster besides him.
So do
They
you
didn't
think
like turn around and just start fighting after that.
right? Should he be made an example out of, being as though he shouldn't have been out there in the beginning? I think so.
Well, look. That's what I was trying to refer to the First Amendment audit fucking shit too, right? The same people that don't like us, the whole people, the mass whole people, all them people, right? Could say, well, this guy got fucked up, you know what I'm saying, by the cops because should he have been out there in the first place? He was just looking for trouble.
Well, that's where the law. That's where the line goes with me.
But we're following the law too. And he was following, you know what I'm saying? Well, he wasn't following the law because of his age,
Right.
but
That's the difference.
but 1 year later, if he was 18, a few months later, turning 18, he would have fucking been following the law. He would have been fine. It's just, it's unfortunate, bro. The whole thing is unfortunate. Like he wanted to go out there and be a vigilante and protect the neighborhood. He's extinguishing fires, trying to protect businesses and shit. Yo, he got caught up because he's a kid,
He
right?
was too much. I think he
But
was doing too much.
but people started attacking him for it.
And being as though the adults aren't
That's
being
not
held
right.
for it, being as though the adults aren't being held accountable
Yo,
for it because he was supposed to be supervised. Yeah, he should be made an example.
I burn a dumpster, right? And then some kid comes over and extinguishes it with a fire extinguisher. Should I attack the kid? Or should I be like, boo, kid, you're a loser? And just, you know what I'm saying? Go on about my shit. You know? Like, come on. Like, there comes a point where violence doesn't have to be the answer. I have to chase a kid down to the point where he feels like he has to use his firearm. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And it's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Like, people aren't realizing this aspect of it and shit. Dude, okay, he fucking extinguished a fire fucking from a dumpster. Oh, that's not his job. Okay, whatever. But is it illegal to extinguish a fucking fire with a fire extinguisher in public and shit? Like, and then fucking to get attacked and chased for it, and then he feels in fear, and then he has to shoot, and then fucking the other shit happens right after that, where
But
they
it is illegal.
skateboard.
We read it for him to have a firearm, a rifle, or
But
something.
that's two different subjects. We already understood that.
I'm just saying though, that's where before
That doesn't prove intent. It doesn't prove intent. It doesn't prove
It's
intent.
unlawful for him to have a gun. It's unlawful for him to shoot at somebody just because they're running at him and like they're apparently just a crazy person. It's unlawful for him to start shooting people who are trying to disarm him after he was in a shootout, just a murder, a killing of someone, a shooting of someone. It's unlawful for him to lie to people and say, like, I didn't just shoot someone. Like,
Were they?
why is he lying? Like,
They were peacefully
knock that
trying.
one
Yeah,
over.
you're right. They were peacefully trying to disarm him. Hold on, I'll be right back. You guys go ahead.
No, actually, how much more left we got with this opening statement, Gray? You know?
No, I haven't watched any of this yet.
We need to keep in mind the context of the night. We need to
I'm about to close this up. Nope, we good. We can watch the rest of it.
formerly known as Kenosha Memorial Hospital, KMH, which happens to be right across the street. These folks load him into a hospital SUV that's there in the back of it, and it races off towards the emergency room to try and save Mr. Rosenbaum's life. That's what Mr. McGinnis does. The defendant, after shooting Mr. Rosenbaum, gets on his phone, calls Dominic Black and says, I just shot somebody, and starts running away. Now, one of the things that you will see and hear in this case is that the defendant throughout this entire evening held himself out as an EMT, as a medic, that he's carrying a medical bag with him, strapped to his body. And yet, in this time of Mr. Rosenbaum there on the ground, injured, potentially dying, the defendant offers no aid, but instead runs. He runs up Sheridan Road. He encounters another member of their group from 59th Street, who you will hear testify, by the name of Jason Lakowski. Jason Lakowski is similarly armed. He's a former Marine. He had been with the defendant at 59th Street and had come down in response to the gunshots. Mr. Lukowski will testify that he met Mr. Rittenhouse as the defendant was fleeing the scene. And Mr. Rittenhouse said to him, "I didn't shoot anybody, but I need help." And Mr. Lukowski says, "Head up towards the police." So the defendant starts running north on Sheridan. The crowd starts yelling, "That guy, the defendant, just shot somebody," because that's all the knowledge they have at that point. And it's true. So they begin to chase after him. They clearly believe he's an active shooter, and they try and stop him. And I've already described to you the events that follow. Mr. Huber, the unknown individual, and Mr. Grosskreutz. So, when we talk in this trial about the nights of August 25th, we need to keep in mind the context of that night. We need to keep in mind the fact that there were hundreds of people on the street that night, experiencing the same chaos, the same loud noises, the same gunfire, the same arson, the same tear gas, the same hostile confrontations with people who believe the opposite of them. And yet, out of these hundreds of people, only one person killed anyone that night. Only one person shot anyone that night. When we consider the reasonableness of the defendant's actions, I ask you to keep that in mind. Now, in this trial, you are going to hear from a number of witnesses from the state. I've already told you about a few of them. We are going to begin the testimony with Dominic Black. He will tell you a little bit about the acquisition of those guns. You will hear from Corey Elijah, who was live streaming the events that night. You will hear from Detective Martin Howard, who worked diligently to gather evidence, including many different videos, many different photos of the scene that night. We are going to use that television to show you these things so that you can see them yourself. I know many of you alluded to the fact yesterday that you've watched or read things about this. You will get the full story here in the courtroom, and you will see some things that have not been made public yet. We intend to do that by moving the TV as central as we can so that you can see it as up close and as well as possible. And we will show you as much as we can about the events of that night. You will hear from the FBI individual who was in the plane taking that infrared video that shows the defendant chasing Mr. Rosenbaum and initiating that confrontation. You will hear from other individuals who took video that night. You will hear more about Joseph Rosenbaum from his girlfriend.
The way he looked scared right here was how scared he was that night. That face right there was the same face he had on that night. Scared as shit. He had no business being out there.
Carrie Ann Swarton. She will tell you about his hospital stay. She will tell you about that bag. She will tell you about what was in that bag. You will hear about Anthony Huber. You will hear that he was a skateboarder, that he lived for skateboarding, that he was at the skate park at Penoya Park all the time, that he actually knew Jacob Blake personally, that he came out that night because he wanted to show support for his friend, Jacob Blake. You will hear what sort of person Anthony Huber was. You will hear from other witnesses who've been affected by that night. You will hear from law enforcement witnesses who did a lot of investigative work to assemble all of the evidence against the defendant in this case. And you will hear from Dr. Douglas Kelly, who will testify regarding the cause of death of Anthony Huber, the gunshot wound to the chest. And you will hear that the shot that killed Joseph Rosenbaum was a shot to the back. And based on all of that evidence, I think you will agree with me that the defendant is guilty of all of these charges.
Wow, shot to the back, Rosenbaum. That's not good.
Thank you, Mr. Here, let's take a...
Well, like I said, I believe, especially with the law that was given by Gray, that he's guilty for the fact of not basically having the right to be out there with the gun. Wolfie seems a little indifferent to it. I don't know. I mean, law is the law.
Look, the shot to the back. is what they're saying is the shot to the back happened after he was shot twice in his lower extremities, right? Meaning his legs, right? So fucking the shots that so he got shot in his like let's say you just pull the trigger and it spritzed 4 bullets, right? He shot in the legs and then the
It
dude turned
won't.
around like
No,
ah
no,
and gets
no,
shot in
no
the back.
rifle when you pull the trigger will fire
Shout
4
out to
That
Look
rounds.
can't
Famous
that can that
UK.
not happen? Can that not happen? He got
That
shot in the leg.
that
Look
literally
Famous
cannot
UK.
How?
happen.
What's going on?
Where did the bullets enter the lower extremities? Is the question.
It's impossible for you to hold down the trigger and for it to fire 4 rounds.
All right,
There's
where
no
did
rifle. There's no
okay
rifle I know of that works that
okay
way.
okay? So where did the lower extremities get hit from the front or the back? That's a
I
question
don't
right
know.
there.
All I'm saying is that each time he fired, he basically took aim and to some degree.
The
and
defense is going to bring it all up.
Those were each of the every time that a round was fired, he made a decision to fire that round.
The defense is going to bring everything up, yo. I can't wait till the defense hits the stand so they can show everybody some shit that they're going to fucking say, look, all right, he got shot in the back, but he got shot in the legs first. And then he was in front of him at first, standing towards him, and then he fucking turned himself, and then fuck to I'm just assuming, if this is the case, and if that is the case, they're gonna prove it if it is or not. Because what I saw was the dude chasing behind an SUV, and I can't see the SUV. I can't see through the SUV, so I don't know what happened at that point. But that's where the guy got shot. I saw.
Right. So you need to see what happened. Like you can't just speculate about what might have happened and pretend that that's evidence. So.
Well, they can't just say, all right, the ultimate shot that killed him was in the back, but the other ones weren't from the front. That preceded that.
Yeah, yes, they can, because after someone is retreating, you have no business shooting someone that's retreating from you. Literally, the law is that you have to be reasonably expecting that that person is about to kill you. Then you can shoot them. So if the third round is into someone's back, they're retreating from you, you can't be expecting them to shoot you, especially after you also just shot them twice in the legs.
Is that the law in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Okay, fair
Social
enough.
Crusader, I don't care
Shout
about
out Philly Boy
what the
420.
interpretation of the statute is. Show me case law, and I'm not going to do your work for you. If you can't cite a case where a judge interpreted the law in the way that you're interpreting it, I don't care.
I'm not going that far. Calm down.
No, I'm talking to Social Crusader. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, that's some guy who's like, just look up the statute. It's like I said.
Because that's my right. Simple as that.
He'll later be shot by Kyle Rittenhouse after drawing his gun and trying to stop him.
The park is closed.
It was going the direction we wanted it to go.
To the unlawful assembly.
Law enforcement has one clear plan on this night.
We're not going to let the city of Kenosha burn because you want to, in the late evening hours, start destroying stuff.
Pretty much in the name of Black Lives Matter, and there's definitely black people in the crowd, but there definitely was more white people.
The armed men chalk up any conflict with the protesters to miscommunication.
We had some negative interactions, but that was more of a confusion on their part about what we were about.
But many of the protesters feel uncomfortable with the armed presence. They accuse Balsh and others of playing vigilante.
Why else are you going to show up, especially Kyle Rittenhouse, show up to a city you don't even live in, armed to the teeth to protect your community? This is not your community, pal. You don't live here.
You guys are protecting that building? Yes! Thank you. You're welcome.
But the police praise the armed men and offer them assistance.
We'll give you a couple. We appreciate you guys, we really do.
This is not the group of people we want here, but you can open carry weapons. So there wasn't a violation of the law.
But just like the protesters, the armed civilians are violating the curfew, and police treat them much differently.
After that curfew, it didn't seem like police was trying to actively disperse or arrest any of the armed civilians. Why is that?
I'm not aware of any of the protesters that weren't being violent that were arrested either.
Was fighting with the armed men at the gas station earlier. Rosenbaum now starts chasing Rittenhouse and throws a plastic bag that holds his belongings from the hospital. Close behind them, a man holds up a handgun and fires it. We don't know why. Then, is fighting with the armed men at the gas station earlier. Rosenbaum now starts chasing Rittenhouse and throws a plastic bag that holds his belongings from the hospital. Close behind them, a man holds up a handgun and fires it. We don't know why. Then Rosenbaum lunges at Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse fires 4 times.
Had I been in his shoes getting chased and then I heard a gunshot, I can't say that I would have done anything differently.
Rosenbaum, who's been hit, falls to the ground. There are 3 more shots from someone else in the parking lot.
Oh shit. We got shots fired, guys. We got shots fired. Pop, 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 pop. And I was like, oh, so they are really shooting. I gotta find some cover. Oh man, maybe they really are really just trying to kill people. And if they were going to take advantage of a situation, I'm a black person, and I don't want to be a target.
Rittenhouse called a friend, while others are helping Rosenbaum.
Can you pause it right here? Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I just wanted to emphasize, right, in that video you seen when he's getting chased by that dude, they make it a note to tell you that the first shot is shot by somebody's handgun or some shit that's around, right, or whatever, and nobody knows why, right? And then there's the 4 shots by Rittenhouse, and then there's 3 more shots by another gun that's not Rittenhouse again. You know what I'm saying? So this shit seems like the first shot he can hear it right up close. He might even think that he's being shot at. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of shit to take into. I'm not trying to take either side. I'm just saying the legal part of me. There's a lot of shit to dissect.
I could definitely take that in consideration. You know, I'm out there with a gun. I hear gunshots. I'm not no trained policeman.
I'm being chased. I hear gunshots. It's a fucking lot of elements to the whole thing that people aren't piecing together legally. I don't give a fuck what people's feelings are. I'm talking about the core of law and how the shit works. You know what I'm saying?
Last word though from you, Woofy, because I got to cut this off. Make it short because it's getting late. So you don't believe that he should be charged for murder, and you also believe that it's unconstitutional that he shouldn't be able to protect himself just because he's under the legal age, right?
I think it's unconstitutional, but I don't think that's an argument here or there. I don't think that's even relevant in the case of murder. So that's just the irrelevant sidebar bullshit.
So
it's sidebar shit.
Yeah. So, but tell me, what do you think? You know, what you think? It should be a lesser degree, lesser charge.
They should have charged him with manslaughter for his negligence for going out there and not being able to carry a firearm, also crossing state lines at the same time. That would have been a manslaughter case. I don't know what degree would have been the one that would have fit it perfectly, but
are you using negligence because that's the most befitting charge for a situation? Like, I see it as a violation. He wasn't supposed to have a gun.
Yeah, but his negligence in that part would have like given them the proper terms for a manslaughter charge. Like, if I was driving a car drunk and I killed somebody, I was negligent because I fucking was drinking. I got behind the wheel and I killed somebody, right? Fucking that would have given a manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter. You know what I mean? So it would have fit manslaughter. Now, if I got behind a car and I was drunk and I killed somebody and they try to say it was murder, they would have to prove that I intended to murder somebody. No, I didn't intend to murder somebody. Motherfucking blew 1.7 or some shit, right? And it was an accident. So then nobody can get mad at anybody except for the fucking prosecutor's office that tried to put or the DA that tried to put all this shit together. You know, um, you have to fucking put the right charge on people. It's happened time and time again. I watch people get off over and over and shit because the charges are too strong.
All right. So real quick before I get to Greg, Social Crusader, he said that's Wisconsin law. Why are you selling wolf tickets in here? That's sad.
Yeah.
Real sad. 939.48. Self-defense or defense of others. This states precisely what I said. The commentator is wrong. Okay, he thinks I'm wrong. I just said that he was underage and is not able to possess a firearm. Precisely,
Self
precisely a rifle. That's what I was saying. So,
self defense and the defense of others is funny as shit.
but
Um,
Greg, you're
put
not.
that in court. Put that in court and see how that shit works.
Greg, you were
I'm
saying
just, when I say that, don't talk to me about what the statute says, talk to me about case law. I mean, find a judge that said, okay, I take that statute and I interpret that to mean, well, if anybody is fearful that they're about to be disarmed of their rifle, that therefore justifies a lethal response to the potential of being disarmed.
Right.
Sure, I'll agree with you. Like, I'll concede that that's true. I just don't know of any case that's been decided in that way, that just because you are in possession of a firearm, the fear of being disarmed of that firearm and then having that firearm used against you therefore makes it reasonable for you to begin preemptively shooting people in order to avoid being disarmed. Like, I can't imagine a judge in a case deciding that that's justified self-defense. Like, find me a case that's like that, and I'll concede that you're right.
Well, this is going to be an interesting case. People are probably going to get in their feelings or whatever about this case. I would just hope that people actually listen to it for the legal terms because we're only scratching the surface here. There's going to be a lot to this case that is there for people to learn about self-defense and where and when and where. We're all coming to assumptions and shit at this point. I'm saying my opinion, you're saying yours, everybody's saying theirs and shit. But we're gonna see how the legal system duels it out, and I'm not saying, hey, I'm gonna be like told you so. I have no fucking clue, but we all have assumptions. Um, I, I stand by mine. I think it's gonna kind of play out in the terms that, but that's just me, in my opinion. But we'll see. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting case, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But look, I'm about to wrap this up. Hey, Wolfie, man, I appreciate you coming up. Great, thanks for coming up. First time you've been up here, man. It took you long enough, but I appreciate you coming up. That's what's up, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, come up more in the future. I'm gonna start trying. I'm gonna try to follow this trial, man. I can't promise nothing, but I would like to follow this. I wanted to follow the Ahmaud Arbery trial as well. But yeah, I'm gonna get up.
I hope you keep doing live streams, even beyond the trial, and maybe trying to get more people from the 1A community to weigh in. Maybe do something. There's the people that kind of are the counter cop watch community, like Mass Report, Mass Hole,
the watchdogs,
like there are people that will just review auditor videos to critique them. Why don't we have like auditors that have that just kind of do the same thing that like Audit the Audit does, or that does, or that like
I thought about making that
does, but highlight.
I thought about making that a weekly thing for me.
Yeah, just like have like a weekly show where auditors look at other auditors and highlight what they like instead of things that they don't like.
I feel like I made my bones in this community enough to be able to critique and say, but I'm fair. I'm not going to trash nobody. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
say, hey, I don't like when people say
shit, like
this. I
not even
don't like when
trash
things
people,
like this
just like
happen.
talk about, hey, I love this audit. This is great. Things that are positive because,
Oh yeah,
you
here or
could have
there,
that
be like,
go
hey, that
too.
was funny.
Yeah, that's not there. I don't know, man. I got a lot going on. So much that I don't even feel like talking about it. But
Yeah, I hear you. But it'd be good to have more community in this community. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, you're right. You're right. There's a lot of bullshit going on in this community too, though. So,
Shit, I'm about to start a podcast with my friend too, and start a whole other channel with him as well.
hey, listen, we might talk about it some more. Maybe I'll come on before the week is out. Uh, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow, depending on how interesting the trial is tomorrow. This Rittenhouse trial might be on.
Oh, it's gonna get better and better. This shit's gonna be good.
If it's good, I might be on tomorrow night. So, y'all look out for it.
All right, dude.
All right, y'all have a good night, man. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
too,
later,
man.
bro. See ya.
All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. It's a long one, another long one, but I'm gonna keep it up. Look, Weymouth, don't worry about it. I'm gonna keep it up. I appreciate y'all. Big Spoon, what's going on, bro? Welcome. Once again, great night. 7777. Appreciate you. Look, Weymouth, UK. Miss B. Level wise to see. Baron Vine Taco Cat. I124Q. What's going on, bro? Who else we got in here? A lot of people. Wake Up America was in this joint. I appreciate y'all. A poor horse abused by Sink. Social Crusader. He was on his gangster in the chat. Ty Guillory. Philly Boy 420. All y'all. Eric Wiley. Yeah. I don't even got no music to go out with. But I do got a commercial. Y'all be safe.
Hit the lights! Everybody about to get killed out here. Like it for everybody.
I don't even got no music to go out with.